Have you ever thought about marrying a total stranger after just a few dates? What does that even feel like? Chloe, a surgical resident, can tell you from experience, it is pure military discipline today. Chloe was on the couch, hugging a giant plushie and venting to her bestie Maya. She was complaining about her new husband Logan, an attending cardiothoracic surgeon. To Chloe, this man is a total control freak. He banned her from cooking stinky rice noodles at home and confiscated the pot on site. He barred her from eating snacks on the couch, snatching away her spicy jerky the second she bit into it. She couldn't even lick the lid of her yogurt without getting a warning glare. Worse, she wasn't allowed to leave clothes on the sofa. And at the hospital, if she touched a patient, Logan would watch her at the sink like a hawk, making sure she did a flawless medical scrub. Driven completely insane, Chloe shouted over the phone that she was ready to rebel. Maya told her that the honeymoon phase is the best time to establish dominance. That advice fired Chloe right up. She went ahead and drew a long boundary line right across the living room floor. She even jumped onto the couch, put her hands on her hips, and demanded a strict 50-50 split. Half the couch was hers, half the table was hers, and half the bed was hers. Before she could even finish, Logan walked in, hung up his keys, and stood dead center in the room. The air instantly turned to ice. Logan stood there in his black overcoat, completely expressionless. He calmly told her he had walked in right around the time she called him a freak. Then he asked if she had a secret second husband, who was just as much of a freak. Chloe immediately lost all her courage and slid off the couch. She carefully rearranged the pillows while Logan listed every single one of her messy habits. He pulled a cold drink from his pocket, and just as Chloe reached for it, he yanked it away. He told her to stop drinking ice water before she gave herself a stomachache. Chloe muttered a complaint under her breath and scurried back to her room. But by midnight, karma hit her hard. All those secret snacks and iced drinks triggered a massive case of acute gastroenteritis. Sweating through her pink pajamas, she knocked on Logan's door in agonizing pain. The second Logan saw her, his eyes filled with pure panic and worry. He scooped her up in his arms and rushed her straight to the air. When Chloe finally woke up in a hospital bed, Logan was sitting right there in a gray coat. A nurse teased him, asking why an attending surgeon had pulled an all-nighter for a regular patient. Chloe looked shocked. Logan coolly replied that she was just his resident, then dismissed the nurse. He handed Chloe some plain oatmeal and ordered her to stick to a bland diet. Looking at the watery food, Chloe put her hands together and begged for some hot sauce. Logan shut her down instantly, telling her to remember how much pain she was just in. Chloe mumbled that if he didn't look after her, nobody would, since she was his student. Logan strictly went over her chart, signed her sick leave, and told her to call him if she needed anything. As soon as he turned around, Chloe made a face at his back. Cut to the hospital cafeteria. Logan's old classmate, Kevin, was gossiping about the sudden marriage, calling it a total miracle. The story flashes back to their actual blind date. It turns out their marriage was completely set up by their families. Sitting in a Seattle coffee shop, Chloe had told Logan flat out that she had to marry someone, so it might as well be him. She admitted he was totally her type and asked him if he wanted to just go for it. She also insisted on keeping the marriage a secret at work. Residency slots are incredibly competitive, and she didn't want any special treatment because of him. Logan was deeply impressed by how independent and sweet she was, so he agreed to her terms. They clinked their glasses to a happy marriage. Back in the present-day cafeteria, Kevin was still trying to dig up info on Logan's secret wife. Right on cue, Chloe walked by holding a lunch tray, saw Logan, and tried to bolt, but Kevin saw her and called her name out loud. Chloe had no choice but to walk over and sit next to Logan, dying of embarrassment. Kevin had absolutely no clue and started joking about how gorgeous and brilliant Logan's wife must be. Chloe sat there covering her mouth, nodding along and holding back laughs. Logan noticed Chloe's tray was loaded with spicy food, frowned, and instantly snatched it away. He traded her for his own plate of plain greens and told her to eat that instead. Kevin just stared at him, totally shocked by how rude Logan was being. Then Chloe felt her phone buzz with a text from Logan. He warned her. In the parking garage, Logan saw the post on his phone and sighed with a smile. Knowing how stubborn her cravings were, he drove out to a local food truck. He carefully picked out some mild options and asked the cook what was safe for a sensitive stomach. Back at the hospital, another doctor was telling Chloe about Logan's real reputation. It turns out Logan is a legendary cardiothoracic surgeon who has handled dozens of impossible cases. The screen shows Logan under immense pressure in the OR successfully saving a 65-year-old patient. The entire hospital was in awe of his genius. Back at the food truck, Maya was relentlessly teasing Chloe. She asked Chloe how she could resist kissing and holding such a handsome guy, or even making a baby. Chloe blushed and lied, saying she used to find him attractive until he became her boss. Right then, Logan initiated a FaceTime call. Panicking, Chloe wiped the grease off her face and pretended she was out for a jog. She smiled into the camera and said it was freezing outside and that she was heading right back. Suddenly, Logan's cold voice came from right behind her, holding a bag of takeout. He asked her why her jogging route led straight to a taco truck. Chloe turned around slowly, catching Maya's terrified expression, and froze. Desperate to survive the awkwardness, she smiled and asked if he was out for a jog too. Logan sighed, set the takeout bag down on her table, and made up a quick excuse. He said he noticed noticed the place just opened and wanted to support a local business. Maya immediately nodded along, trying to cover for her friend. Logan's eyes were full of effortless affection. He gently pinched Chloe's cheek and told her to wipe the grease off her face first. It hurt a little, but seeing him smile brought out her deep dimples. Logan took her hand, said goodbye to Maya, and led her to his car, buckling her seatbelt for her. On the drive back, he reminded her that he was leaving for a medical conference tomorrow. He told her not to celebrate too much while working under the temporary attending. Chloe looked away playfully, complaining that he was always way too mean at work. They shared a sweet smile, locking in a deal for 2 more cheap meals next week. But their quiet morning didn't last long. Logan got a sudden call that his grandmother was dropping by for a surprise inspection. She had absolutely no idea that they were keeping their marriage a secret or sleeping in separate rooms. Logan hammered on Chloe's door, telling her they had less than 15 minutes to move her stuff into his room. Chloe dragged her feet, reluctantly hauling her mountain of stuffed animals across the hall. Right before the doorbell rang, they bargained a deal for 5 cheap meals and 0 snack raids. When Grandma walked in, she happily handed over some homemade pastries. But the old lady was a retired college professor with an incredibly sharp eye. She toured the apartment, noticed the empty guest room, and saw how weird the pillows looked in the master bedroom. She immediately grew suspicious and asked if anyone actually slept in the guest room. Just as their secret arrangement was about to blow up, Chloe had a stroke of genius. She threw her arms around Grandma, fake crying, and blamed everything on Logan. She lied and said they got into a massive fight, so she kicked him out of her bed. She complained that he controlled everything, banned her from eating out, and went to restaurants without her. Grandma instantly took Chloe's side and gave Logan a brutal scolding. She ordered Logan to treat his wife better and told Chloe she had every right to keep punishing him. Logan stood there completely helpless, trying his absolute best not to laugh. Chloe happily walked Grandma back down to her car. On the quiet night path, Grandma took Chloe's hand for a private chat. She admitted she knew the marriage was arranged, but she truly believed they were perfect for each other. She explained that Logan lost his parents at a young age, which is why he became so guarded and cold deep down. She said he is an incredibly warm and caring boy. She told Chloe to hold on to him, promising to straighten him out if he ever stepped out of line. Hearing this touched Chloe deeply, and she nodded with tears in her eyes. As Grandma drove away, Chloe turned around and saw Logan standing a few feet back in his winter coat. He was looking at her with total warmth. They shared a smile, and the distance between them completely vanished. The next day, Chloe was running the clinic while Logan was away at his conference. She was carefully reviewing an elderly patient's ultrasound and CT scans. The charts read completely normal, but her instincts told her there was a minor tear in his heart valve. However, the patient and his daughter thought she was just wasting their time and started screaming at her. Another resident told Chloe to drop it so she wouldn't get a formal patient complaint, but Chloe's sense of duty wouldn't let her walk away. She frantically texted Logan for help, almost typing out the word hubby in her panic. Over at the conference hall, Logan saw the message and his face turned incredibly serious. Back in the hospital lobby, Chloe sprinted across the floor to cut off the angry family before they left. With absolute conviction, she begged them for just 5 more minutes, promising a senior specialist was on the way. Moved by her dedication, the father finally agreed. Watching Chloe guide the patient back into the clinic showed exactly what kind of doctor she was becoming. The truth is, clinic days are always utter chaos. Families travel from hours away demanding to see Dr. Logan, complaining about how hard it is to book him. It was only thanks to Chloe's sharp eyes that they caught the valve tear before it became fatal. When Logan finally arrived, he took over the case and praised Chloe right in front of the family. Hearing her husband compliment her work made Chloe beam with pride. On a bit of playful bickering, Chloe joked about wanting a new husband. It's wild how they are strict teacher and student at the hospital, but a secret married couple at home. Logan leaned in close, and the tension between them almost boiled over. At dinner time, they drove over to Chloe's parents' place. Chloe immediately got caught sneaking food in the kitchen and got yelled at by her dad. Meanwhile, Logan got the absolute VIP treatment as the perfect son-in-law. Her dad shielded him from any blame, pinning the kitchen raid entirely on Chloe. They sat around the table, sharing drinks and talking about residency in a perfectly warm family atmosphere. After dinner, Chloe was completely wasted. As they walked across a pedestrian bridge, she started acting goofy, demanding a piggyback ride from Logan. Climbing onto his back, she loudly announced that she wanted to have 8 babies with him. Then she started tugging on his ears, giggling that they felt like pig ears. Logan just smiled tolerantly the entire time. When Chloe pretended she sprained her ankle, Logan immediately wrapped his jacket around her and carried his little troublemaker all the way home. The next morning, Chloe was wearing a cute cartoon headband, crawling around the floor. She was putting tiny cat socks on the wooden table legs, arguing arguing that the furniture got cold in the winter. Her bizarre logic left Logan completely speechless, but the love in his eyes was unmistakable. Moments later, they sat down together to enjoy a beautiful breakfast Logan had cooked from scratch. Unfortunately, hospital life is never peaceful for long. A male patient named Tyler was admitted to their ward. He was married but hid his ring to act single, using his checkup as an excuse to hit on Chloe. He made inappropriate comments and eventually grabbed her by the waist. Logan caught him red-handed and completely lost his temper. To protect his wife, he slammed the guy against the wall and broke his arm right then and there. That created a massive corporate nightmare. Dr. Miller, the chief of surgery, screamed at them in his office until he was red in the face. Tyler was threatening to call reporters and sue the hospital unless he got a personal apology. Dr. Miller tried to shift the blame onto Chloe to save face. But Logan stood his ground like a real man, taking full responsibility and shielding his wife from the fallout. By lunchtime, Chloe was hiding out in the cafeteria with Maya. Instead of being worried, Maya was thrilled by the drama, calling Logan's protective streak incredibly hot. She kept teasing Chloe about when they were finally going to take their relationship to the next level. When they got home after work, Chloe felt incredibly guilty for ruining Logan's record. She went into the kitchen and cooked him a bowl of comfort noodles to apologize. Logan looked at his guilty wife, sat her down, and comforted her, saying he would do it again in a heartbeat. But they still had to face reality the next morning. Dr. Miller dragged Logan back into the room to apologize to that scumbag Tyler. Tyler didn't back down. He actually got smugger. He arrogantly announced that he would drop the entire issue on one condition: Chloe had to go out on a date with him. Hearing that, Logan stood by the bed, his knuckles turning white as he fought the urge to hit him again. Trying to shake off the anger, Chloe ran into a sweet distraction in the hallway. It was Leo, a 7-year-old boy suffering from advanced cardiac myxoma. The sharp little kid recognized Chloe instantly and teased her about the legendary fight Logan started for her. Logan walked up behind them and the three of them shared a sweet moment as Logan handed the brave little patient a piece of candy. Later that afternoon, Leo was sitting all alone on a hallway bench, clutching a paper sunflower. His dad, a delivery driver, came rushing through the doors, saw his son, and ran over to hug him. Logan and Chloe walked up to join them. Leo grabbed Logan's hand, crying, and begged the doctor to save his mom. Logan looked down at the boy with a heavy heart. Soon, Logan and his surgical team began their intense pre-op routine. They scrubbed, sanitized, adjusted their headlamps, and carefully counted every clamp and scalpel. Gowning up in their scrubs, they pushed through the double doors for a high-stakes race against time. Inside the theater, the mood was incredibly grim as the team reviewed the vitals. The patient was Sarah, a 33-year-old mother with an advanced tumor that had ruptured, causing multiple arterial blocks. To make things worse, her long-term chemo had completely destroyed her blood clotting abilities. Logan told the room that the odds were heavily against them, but they had to give it everything they had. After verifying her ID and the emergency consent forms, the first incision was made. With anesthesia holding and blood products on standby, Logan navigated the dense tissue. He located the tumor, excised it cleanly into a specimen bag, and began the delicate repairs. But then, the heart monitor began to beep erratically. Her heart completely stopped flatlining. With no time to lose, Logan immediately began open chest compressions and called for the defibrillator paddles. Tragically, despite the team throwing every medical trick they knew at the monitor, the red light above the door went dark. They couldn't bring her back. Logan walked out of the theater completely exhausted. Facing the hopeful father and son waiting in the hallway, neither he nor Chloe could find the words to break the news. Leo seemed to realize what happened and burst into tears. He had previously whispered to Chloe that his mom always said sunflowers represented hope, which was why he stayed up all night making one. But now, that flower of hope could only be left on a completely empty hospital bed. After the shift change, Chloe sat on the building's concrete steps, crying her eyes out in grief. Logan walked over quietly and handed her a carton of milk. He told her to drink up and promised to take her out for real food once the morning rounds were officially done. Chloe wept, saying Leo was far too young to lose his mother and wishing she had been a better doctor. She sobbed that even a genius surgeon couldn't save everyone. Logan looked at his grieving wife and softly noted that they had done everything humanly possible. He murmured that life is incredibly fragile and being a doctor is brutal, then offered to show her something. Logan drove Chloe over to the hospital's newborn nursery. Through the glass, they watched rows of tiny babies sleeping and kicking in their cribs, the heavy grief slowly lifting. Logan confessed that in their line of work, seeing so much death can make a person numb. He admitted that every time he loses a patient, he comes to this window. Seeing these brand new lives helps him remember the strength and hope of the world. Looking at him, Chloe finally saw the deep gentleness hidden beneath his icy exterior. She dried her tears, playfully asking if he still owed her dinner, and Logan quietly smiled. That night, they went out to an open-air food market. Chloe was happily eating, declaring that street food is the ultimate cure for sadness, though Logan shut down her request for a beer. Noticing Logan hadn't touched his plate, she leaned over to feed him a bite. Logan reluctantly accepted, admitting his grandfather raised him strictly and never allowed junk food. Chloe laughed, telling him that since they were married now, she would introduce him to the good stuff, as long as he kept paying. While they were laughing, a loud argument broke out at the table right next to them. A drunk guy was getting aggressive, putting his hands on a young girl. Logan didn't hesitate, he jumped right in to protect her, and ended up getting swarmed by the drunk guy's friends. Shielding Chloe, Logan yelled at the crowd to run for it. He grabbed Chloe's hand, and they took off sprinting through the dark city streets and subway tunnels. As they ran, Chloe jokingly asked if he actually knew how to fight. Logan panted that he had no idea, and Chloe laughed, saying it felt like they were eloping. They finally made it into a local police precinct to file a report, and the instigator was locked up. When they stepped back outside, Logan's right cheek was already bruising and swollen. Chloe looked at her injured husband, her heart breaking for him, though she kept joking to keep the mood light. Once they got home, she carefully used a warm hard-boiled egg to soothe the swelling on his face. She explained that whenever she got hurt as a clumsy kid, her mom would always use an egg to heal the bruises. She looked into his eyes, telling him he was never allowed to fight again. She whispered that a surgeon's hands are meant for saving lives, not hitting people. Logan just looked back at his rambling wife with absolute adoration. A few days later, they packed some gifts and drove out to his grandparents' beautiful suburban home. Grandma ran out to meet them with a massive hug, and Chloe happily buried her face in the old lady's shoulder. While sitting in the garden gazebo, Grandma started teasing Grandpa about his youth. She complained that he promised her a cross-country road trip decades ago, but kept canceling it for medical lectures. She joked that she should have married the local business owner's son instead. Grandpa shot right back with a sarcastic comment, and the old couple's bickering had Logan and Chloe hiding their laughter. Later, Grandma took Chloe over to the garden swing to show her an old family photo album. The pages were full of pictures of Logan at 3, 8, and 11, looking chubby and laughing constantly. Chloe asked why such a happy smiling kid turned into such a serious cold adult. Grandma sighed, finally opening up about Logan's past. She revealed that when Logan was in middle school, his parents were killed in a terrible car accident. Logan had to grow up overnight, dedicating his life to getting perfect grades just to keep his grandparents happy. Grandpa became incredibly strict with him, and Logan never broke a single rule again. Back in the gazebo, the two men were quietly finishing a game of chess. Grandpa made a move and told Logan to let go of his old anger. Logan's mind immediately flashed back to a painful memory. Years ago, Grandpa was confined to a hospital bed, screaming at Logan for going on a dangerous backcountry ski trip. Logan had been caught in an avalanche and barely survived. Grandpa wept, calling him incredibly selfish for risking his life when he was the last surviving child of the family. The argument got so heated that Grandpa suffered an acute ischemic stroke right there in the room. Thankfully, the ER team caught it instantly and administered clot-busting meds within the golden hour. Logan remembered standing by the bed in absolute silence, his fists clenched in pure guilt. In the present, Grandpa finished his final move, grumbled under his breath, and went inside. He came back out carrying a stack of thick leather-bound journals and handed them to Chloe. He told her those were his personal surgical logs from 40 years in medicine, full of rare cases for her to study. Chloe thanked him with a laugh, turning to Logan to joke that she finally knew where his obsession with studying came from. On the dark drive home, Chloe was passenger side, flipping through the old cardiothoracic logs. When she hit a detailed section on cardiac tumors, her jaw literally dropped. She looked over at Logan driving in silence, asking if he used to be a competitive skier, remembering his old trophies. Logan didn't answer, a faint look of sadness passing through his eyes. Seeing that, Chloe thoughtfully closed the journal and pretended to drift off to sleep. Logan glanced at his sleeping wife, the echoes of his grandfather's old warnings still playing in his head. The next night, Chloe spotted a stray cat trapped high up in a tree by the sidewalk. Logan tried to be the voice of reason, warning her that feral cats bite, carry diseases, shed everywhere, and ruin furniture, but sweet Chloe wasn't listening to a word of it. She unwrapped her white fleece scarf, held it out to the branches, and coaxed the shivering cat down into her arms. She turned to Logan, crying that the kitten looked exactly like the pet she lost in middle school. She declared that finding him was destiny, naming the cat Hot Pot. Then she looked at the cat and said, "Hot Pot, meet your new dad, welcome home." Back inside, Chloe was instantly on her phone buying supplies, planning vet trips, vaccines, and litter boxes. Logan squatted next to her, asking if she was moving a little too fast. But Chloe was entirely in her element, living her best life as a new cat mom. She grabbed Logan's hand, forcing him to give the kitten a proper introduction. Logan groaned and rolled his eyes, but looking at his wife's pleading face, he gave in. He crouched down, extending a single gentle finger to let the kitten sniff his hand. Chloe laughed happily, and the icy look on Logan's face melted into a beautiful warm smile. How sweet can life get for a secret young couple? A few days later, Chloe was at a local pet boutique, picking out tiny outfits when she ran right into Logan. Since they were both there, they spent the afternoon picking out an air purifier and a robot vacuum for the apartment. The clerk handed over a clean, freshly groomed hot pot, reminding them to bring him back for shots next week. Looking at his family, Logan smiled, called the cat's name, and drove his wife and pet back home. Walking across the pedestrian bridge that evening, Logan looked at his cat and his wife, admitting that this routine brought him real peace. Chloe was digging through the bags, laughing at how many cat bodies he bought. Logan cleared his throat and muttered that a few of those boxes were actually hair clips for her. Chloe's heart absolutely melted. She waved a toy for the cat, joking that Logan and Hot Pot shared the exact same grumpy face. By daytime, the two were back to being strictly professional at work. Chloe was sitting in the crowded cafeteria with a colleague, complaining about how her schedule left her zero time for friends. The coworker laughed, pointing out that her Instagram feed was entirely cat photos, making her a total parent influencer. She advised Chloe to stop focusing on the cat and start focusing on making a real baby with her husband. On the other side of the room, Logan was having lunch with a fellow surgeon. The doctor mentioned that Logan's wife had just gotten a cat. He laughed, noting that Logan's cat was named Dragonfruit, while his resident Chloe's cat was named Hot Pot. The doctor joked that the mentor-student duo shared an almost creepy amount of synergy. Right then, Chloe got a page about an incoming trauma and stood up to leave. Logan casually walked past her table and dropped a massive fresh orange onto her tray without anyone noticing. Chloe saw the fruit, smiled to herself, and muttered that the guy actually had a heart. Suddenly, a massive multi-car pileup sent the ear into red alert. Logan paged Chloe to meet him down in Trauma Bay 1 immediately. The female victim was arrived in critical condition with a ruptured heart causing tamponade, along with a crushed pelvis and a severed artery. Dr. Vance, the chief of orthopedic surgery, came running in straight from his previous case. Faced with total cardiovascular collapse, Logan made the call to perform a simultaneous heart repair and arterial reconstruction. Watching the two finest surgeons in the city work side by side made Chloe's blood pump with pure adrenaline. The atmosphere in the OR was terrifyingly tense, but Logan and Dr. Vance moved like clockwork, with absolute composure and precision. Logan executed the internal sutures perfectly, and the monitor stabilized. Walking out of the double doors, they found the husband covered in dust and tears, comforting him with the news that she made it through. Walking down the long corridor, Chloe whispered that being a doctor didn't just mean saving a body, it meant saving an entire family. Dr. Vance walked past, clapping her on the shoulder with a smile, telling her she was turning into an incredible doctor. On say, the scrubs came off, the hospital rumor mill started spinning. A few nurses were gossiping in the lounge, noting that Logan and Chloe were the cleanest duo in the department, never involved in any workplace drama. They laughed, saying they were going to push Logan hard at the upcoming hospital charity basketball game to test his stamina for Chloe. A few hours later, Chloe ran into an old college friend in the hallway. The guy was shocked to find out she was a resident here, especially working under the famous Dr. Logan. He started praising Logan's surgical records, calling him an absolute legend. Hearing someone compliment her guy, Chloe couldn't help but smile, proudly whispering that Logan wasn't just her boss, he was her husband. With her charts finally done for the day, she clocked out with a massive smile. Outside the main entrance, a freezing wind was howling, and Chloe was stamping her feet to stay warm. She mumbled a complaint about how ridiculous it was that a married couple had to sneak around like an undercover spy ring just to drive home together. Right then, Logan's white sedan pulled up to the curb. Chloe climbed into the passenger seat, huffing about waiting in the cold. Logan pulled into traffic, asking in a slightly jealous tone about her history with that old college friend. Chloe missed the jealousy entirely, rambling on about how the guy was a straight-A student who won every award in school. That completely set off Logan's competitive side, and he snapped back that he had a closet full of national honors too. Chloe finally caught on, smirked, and asked him if he was actually jealous. She leaned over, assuring him that the guy was just an old classmate and nothing more. The second they got inside, Chloe picked up Hot Pot, smothering the cat in kisses. Meanwhile, Logan walked into the study, the front of the bleachers, cheering at the top of her lungs for her husband. Today's hospital basketball game was absolutely electric. Hospital, Chloe was daydreaming over her coffee when Mia caught her. Under interrogation, Chloe leaned in and whispered, "I think I am falling for my husband." Mia just rolled her eyes hard. Chloe gushed about how amazing Logan was, a brilliant doctor, gentle with patience, and he even let her get a cat. Mia teased her, saying she should just go kiss him, hug him, and legally make a baby. Chloe buried her face in her hands, her mind racing with Mia's wild advice the second she saw Logan. While Chloe was daydreaming, Todd walked over to ask her out for dinner. Overwhelmed with work, she mindlessly said yes. Sitting right next to her, Logan's face instantly dropped. He was drowning in jealousy. Sensing the tension, Todd invited Logan along too, and Logan didn't hesitate for a second. At the restaurant, Todd ordered a feast while Logan coldly stated he'd just have whatever Chloe was having. During dinner, Todd brought up how their parents always joked about Chloe marrying him. That was the final straw. Logan completely snapped, staying silent and chugging drinks. Meanwhile, oblivious Chloe kept happily reminiscing with Todd about their college days. By the end of dinner, Logan was completely wasted. Todd offered to drive them, but terrified of exposing their secret marriage, Chloe declined. She struggled with all her might to drag the drunk man into a cab back home. A tipsy Logan mumbled about unfair rules and double standards. Chloe finally got him onto the couch. As she turned to get water, Logan grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his arms. With bloodshot eyes, he whimpered, "I am jealous. I hate seeing you two so close. I want you to only smile at me." That direct confession hit Chloe right in the heart. The next morning, Logan woke up with a pounding hangover. As last night's memories rushed back, he wanted to crawl into a hole when he awkwardly shuffled into the living room. Chloe smirked while watering her plants. She teasingly called him Mr. Jealous and offered to refresh his memory. Logan covered his face in sheer embarrassment, making Chloe find him even more adorable. In the middle of their sweet moment, Logan's phone rang. His grandparents were fighting over vacation plans again, and Grandma was packing to leave. The couple rushed over to intervene, but Grandma was determined to move out, and no one could change her mind. With no other choice, Chloe brought Grandma back to stay at their apartment. To make her comfortable, Chloe fully decorated the guest room with cute plush toys. But seeing the setup, Grandma assumed the young couple slept in separate rooms. She asked, "Wait, am I supposed to share a bed with Logan tonight?" That misunderstanding completely backfired, forcing the secret newlyweds into the exact same bed. Late at night, they lay rigid side by side in the massive bed. The awkwardness was off the charts. Chloe sighed internally, thinking Logan was such a blockhead who would never make the first move. So she took a leap of faith, flipped over to straddle him, planted a kiss, and boldly demanded to know his feelings. Looking at his beautiful wife up close, Logan's eyes turned passionate. He wrapped his arms tightly around her waist. Though deeply aroused, irrational Logan gently reminded her they needed protection to keep her safe. Blushing furiously, Chloe told him to go downstairs and buy some, so they threw on coats and ran out to a 24-hour convenience store in the middle of the night. Chloe hid behind the shelves looking guilty, while Logan tried his best to act natural at the checkout. Supplies secured, they walked back home hand in hand, filled with anticipation. Back in the bedroom, Logan unleashed his passion, cradling Chloe's face for a deep loving kiss. As romantic music swelled, they collapsed into the soft bed, wrapped up in each other's warmth. Life soon returned to normal. During a staff meeting, the strict department chief was reaming out the residents over a patient complaint. Chloe sat there feeling completely dejected, but Logan secretly squeezed her hand under the table to comfort her. Distracted, Chloe was suddenly called out by the chief, who asked if she'd won the lottery. She scrambled to stand up, while Logan practically choked, trying to suppress his laughter. The camera then cut to a quiet ICU room. A critical patient was fighting for her life inside, while her husband left daily emotional voicemails from the waiting room. "Honey, it is day 6. Don't be afraid, I am right outside. When you wake up, I'll make your favorite noodles and our tulips are about to bloom." Inside, the wife slowly opened her eyes, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. Watching through the window, both Chloe and Logan teared up. To have and to hold, from this day forward. The secret newlyweds felt their hearts align perfectly as they held hands tightly in the bright hospital corridor. Logan, the stark cardiothoracic surgeon, wrapped up a grueling shift and headed down to the parking garage. Todd, wearing his glasses, walked up to him. He asked about a recovering patient, relieved to hear things were looking up. Then Todd started beating around the bush, asking if Chloe had clocked out yet. Turns out, Todd had a massive crush on Chloe ever since their undergrad years. Knowing Logan was her mentor and close to her, Todd got nervous. He shyly asked Logan to find out if Chloe felt the same way about him. Before Logan could answer, clicking footsteps echoed, and Chloe came running right up behind Todd, ignoring everything else. She leaped right onto Logan's back. She wrapped her arms around his neck, squealing happily about how much she missed him. Todd froze in sheer shock, his jaw dropping to the floor as he stared in absolute disbelief. Logan gently patted her to step down, but she whined, saying no one was around anyway. She stubbornly stayed on his back, demanding a ride upstairs. When Logan gestured with his eyes, Chloe turned and finally saw a frozen Todd. She flushed, stuck her tongue out, and offered a sheepish, "Hey Todd." Since the cat was out of the bag, Logan smiled at the stunned man and dropped the bomb. He looked Todd in the eye and said, "Actually, Chloe and I are married." The news hit Todd like a truck. He leaned against a nearby car for support. He groaned that he was getting too old for this kind of drama. Chloe looked at him with concern, asking if he was alright. But she and Logan just shared a private smile, their eyes full of sweetness. The couple headed home, greeted warmly by Grandma in her apron. Before they could sit, Logan's phone rang. It was his stubborn grandpa calling from the old house in Boston. Grandpa was alone in the yard watering his plants. He casually asked about Grandma's whereabouts while pretending he was just checking working on hospital business. Grandma overheard, immediately jumping on the line to trade sharp barbs with him. Grandpa snapped back, claiming he loved the peace and quiet without her around. Grandma shot right back, saying she was having the time of her life with the kids. She threatened him fiercely, warning him not to ruin her precious plants or else. After she slammed the phone down, Grandpa stamped his feet, muttering about ripping out all the flowers, but looking at Grandma's prized azaleas, he just sighed. He muttered that he wasn't scared of her, it would just be a waste to kill such nice plants. Late that night, the scene shifted to the vintage book-filled study. Grandpa sat under a lamp, surrounded by thick pediatric textbooks. He opened a notebook and carefully charted a route with his pen. First stop, Boston, second stop, Yellowstone. Turns out, he was secretly planning a dream vacation for her all along. Meanwhile, in their cozy apartment, Logan was reading on the couch. Chloe was resting her head on his lap in her pink pajamas, cradling a tiny cat in a sweater. She asked worriedly if the grandparents would actually get a divorce if this kept up. Logan smiled gently, reassuring her that Grandpa couldn't survive without Grandma and she'd see soon. Chloe pouted, declaring that even though Grandpa spoiled her, she was strictly Team Grandma this time. Looking at his lovely wife, Logan put his book down. Chloe leaned up to wrap arms around his neck for a tender kiss. Logan smiled, using his hand to block the cat's eyes, whispering, "Kids shouldn't watch this." The next day on the hospital escalator, a colleague ran up to Chloe. She whispered that Logan, the hotshot heart surgeon, was over in the pediatrics wing reviewing a child's charts. This left Chloe completely stunned. The colleague gossiped that back during residency, Logan desperately wanted to specialize in pediatrics. He had even worked things out with the department head, but his grandfather intervened, forcing him into cardio to carry on the family legacy. Chloe stood there, completely frozen by this untold past. Just then her phone buzzed with a text from Logan, saying he'd be late due to a lecture and told her to go home first. Looking at his cute emoji, a tender smile graced Chloe's lips. Night fell, and the old estate in Boston was dead silent. The housekeeper pointed to a glass jar before leaving, mentioning Grandma made these pickles for Logan but forgot to pack them. Grandpa kept his hands in his pockets, coldly muttering that he didn't care, but the second she walked out, he checked his surroundings and rushed to the table. He eagerly opened the jar and stuffed a piece into his mouth. As he chewed, a genuinely happy and satisfied smile spread across his face. Not long after, the stubborn old man showed up at the apartment, awkwardly holding that same jar of pickles. Grandma completely ignored him, and within seconds, they were bickering like toddlers again. Grandpa spotted the cat and immediately started lecturing them in his old school tone. He scolded them for wasting time on a pet, instead of studying to save more lives. He even started nitpicking about their current medical promotions and career tracks. Yet, despite his harsh words, his body language told a different story. As he lectured, he pulled out a cat treat and gently knelt down to feed the kitty. Seeing the cat enjoy it, he proudly declared he would pay for all its treats from now on. Grandma rolled her eyes, calling him stubborn, selfish, and completely impossible. Grandpa snapped back, telling her she was talking nonsense. Caught in the crossfire, Logan and Chloe could only look at each other and sigh. Later that night, Logan drove Grandpa back home in his white Mercedes SUV. In the quiet car, Grandpa proudly listed all the lives he had saved over his long illustrious career. He complained Grandma never understood his sacrifices and always picked fights. He insisted that without his strict guidance, Logan would never be the top surgeon he is today. He asked defensively if wanting a great future for his grandson was such a crime. Hearing his raw complaints, Logan stayed silent for a moment before saying gently, "Grandpa, take Grandma on that trip." He reminded him that he was taught to be an honorable man, and Grandma was the one person he shouldn't fail. Logan pointed out that Grandma had patiently waited for him for over 50 years. Though she complained, she never truly resented the late-night surgeries or the broken dinner plans. She had always respected his calling with the deepest, quietest kind of love, and this vacation was the only thing she had ever asked of him. Logan's words pierced right through Grandpa's tough exterior. Melting his defenses, he turned away, staring at the passing city lights in a long, profound silence. The SUV pulled up to the gates of Rainwood House. Logan got out and respectfully opened the heavy wooden door for him. Before stepping inside, Grandpa paused, his voice trembling slightly. "Logan, do you still blame me for forcing you out of pediatrics?" Logan froze, his heart skipping a beat. A flash of deep sorrow crossed his eyes, but he hid it well, simply replying, "Go inside, Grandpa, get some rest." Watching the old man's fragile back disappear as the door shut, Logan stood alone in the cold wind for a long, long time. Back home, the living room was dimly lit by a single lamp. Logan found Chloe fast asleep on the leather couch, hugging a cartoon pillow. He quietly set his coat down, knelt beside her, and gazed at her with pure devotion. As he gently stroked her hair, Chloe blinked open her eyes and whispered with a smile, "You are home." He asked why she didn't sleep in bed, and she pulled her blanket tight, saying she wanted to wait up for him. Sitting up, she looked into his eyes and asked softly if what Grandma said about his dream of doing pediatrics was true. Logan let out a soft sigh, nodded, and completely opened his heart to his wife. He recalled how his father wanted him to choose a stable stable career path, but he insisted on going to med school. To him, saving lives was the coolest, most meaningful thing in the world. He told her to never ignore passion, because doing what you love is the only thing that keeps you moving forward. His mind drifted back to his residency days, a time of intense passion, but also his greatest heartbreak. There was a sweet little patient named Lily in the pediatrics ward back then. She always wore striped scrubs and clutched a blue plush elephant. She was very sick and always looked exhausted. With big innocent eyes, she had asked him, "Am I dying, doctor? Why do mommy and daddy always cry when they think I am not looking?" Those words tore a hole right through young Logan's heart. He had knelt down, stroking her head, promising her that everyone was fighting to make her better. That promise brought the spark right back into her eyes. She told him she hoped he'd become the greatest kids doctor ever to save all her friends. That way, she said, no more parents would ever have to hide and cry again. Deeply moved by her pure wish, Logan had nodded with tears in his eyes. They pinky promised right then and there, a sacred vow between doctor and patient. But the memory suddenly shattered into cold, sterile white. Alarms blared, and Logan remembered sprinting through the hospital corridors like a madman. By the time he arrived, nurses were already wheeling out of bed, covered in a cold white sheet. A tiny arm hung limply from the side, a little red string tied around her wrist. Through tears, a nurse told him Lily's heart had stopped, and despite a grueling all-night resuscitation, they lost her. Lily's father collapsed against the wall, weeping inconsolably. Logan stood frozen to the spot, tears pooling in his eyes, staring at the empty bed. The weight of his broken promise crushed him, leaving an eternal scar. That tragic night became the darkest trauma he could never outrun. Then his mind flashed to the explosive argument in the study when he told Grandpa he wanted pediatrics. It was a brutal clash of two generations. Grandpa slammed the desk in a fury, shouting that Logan's late parents were elite cardiosurgeons. As the sole heir, he was demanded to carry on the family legacy in cardiosurgery. Young Logan fought back through tears, arguing he could save just as many lives in pediatrics. He yelled that his hands could save lives anywhere, and his parents would have supported his dream. Mentioning his parents drove Grandpa over the edge, screaming that Logan was being utterly selfish and impossible. He asserted everything he did was to secure a brilliant future that surpassed his own. Trembling with rage, Logan cried, "If I were selfish, I wouldn't have given up everything I loved just to obey you. You chose med school. You chose cardio. You even arranged my marriage. I've been living my life like a puppet on your strings." Those venomous words left the furious old man completely paralyzed. He looked deeply hurt and utterly shattered, draining all the anger from his face. With cold despair, Logan whispered, "But Grandpa, did you ever stop to ask what I actually wanted? You asked if I ever resented you. The truth is, for a long time, I hated you." He stormed out, leaving Grandpa leaning heavily against the desk, gasping for air in total shock and heartbreak. The scene faded back to the warmth of their living room couch. Hearing his buried agony, Chloe wept for her husband. Without a word, she wrapped her arms tightly around him, offering her absolute warmth and strength. She whispered in his ear, "It is your life, Logan. You need to listen to your own heart. Go after your dream. No matter what happens, I will always be right here by your side." Cradled in her unconditional love, Logan buried his face in her neck and murmured, "Let me think about it, Chloe." The next morning, Logan and Chloe walked side by side down the hospital corridor. Inside the elevator, colleagues were talking solemnly about a tragic case that just came in. A toddler had lost their battle with severe sepsis. The parents' world was completely shattered. Hearing this, Logan lowered his eyes, his expression dark as his fists clenched tightly inside his pockets. Stepping out, Chloe noticed the intense internal struggle raging inside him. She stopped, turning around with a brilliant, encouraging smile that lit up the hallway. She said firmly, "Cardio or pediatrics, it doesn't matter. Saving lives is always incredibly cool." She flashed him two big thumbs up, telling him he'd be a phenomenal doctor anywhere. Looking at her beautiful smile and her supportive hands, Logan stared down at his own palms. In that instant, all his doubts vanished, replaced by pure unyielding conviction. He took a deep breath, smiled at her, and said, "All right, I am going to talk to Grandpa." That evening, the old study smelled faintly of fresh ink. Grandpa stood over his desk, completely absorbed in practicing his calligraphy. Hearing the door open, he looked up in surprise to see Logan walk in. Trying to hide his emotion, he joked gruffly, "What are you doing here?" "Another plea deal for your grandmother. Did she finally realize she can't live without my garden? Fine, I'll allow her back." Ignoring the old man's usual facade, Logan marched up to the desk with absolute purpose. He squared his shoulders and locked eyes with his grandfather. Taking a deep breath, he said clearly and calmly, "Grandpa, I am not here about Grandma. I am transferring to pediatrics." The word pediatrics hit Grandpa like a lightning bolt, freezing his brush midair. His smug expression vanished instantly, replaced by utter shock and disbelief. He slowly set the brush down, staring at his unyielding grandson as a heavy silence filled the room. And on that intense close-up of Grandpa's stunned face, the screen cut to black. leaving a gripping cliffhanger. In the vintage hallway, Logan walked nervously while Chloe stood ahead, offering her silent support. To fix things, Chloe went into the intimidating study alone to reason with the old patriarch. Seeing her, Grandpa turned away, grumbling that if she was there to speak for Logan, she could save her breath. Faced with his icy demeanor, Chloe didn't flinch for a second. With teary eyes, she told him with absolute certainty that Logan belonged in pediatrics. She revealed that Logan's personal shelves were packed with pediatric books. He had never given up on his dream. She argued that his pride shouldn't be tied to a specific department, but to Logan being a truly great healer. She added that when his parents passed, Logan bore every burden and stayed in cardio just to ease Grandpa's pain. But Grandpa, did you forget Logan was just a teenager then? He lost his parents too. Controlling his entire life like this was just incredibly unfair to him. Those raw words pierced right through the proud old man's armor. He buried his face in his hands, completely overwhelmed by intense guilt. Watching his pain, Chloe took a deep breath and gently asked him to really think about it. She noted that Logan truly deeply cared about his feelings more than anyone. With everything out in the open, she quietly turned and left the study. Left alone, Grandpa looked at the vacation maps he drew, his stubborn resolve finally crumbling. Late that night, Logan stood by his white Mercedes SUV looking lost and deeply troubled. Suddenly, a wave of warmth hit him as Chloe slipped up from behind and wrapped her arms tightly around him. Pressing her face against his back, she whispered affectionately, "Logan, you know I am always here." Deeply moved, Logan turned to face his wife, murmuring a soft, regretful apology. Chloe looked up with a playful smile, asking why on earth he was apologizing out of the blue. Holding her hands, Logan confessed he knew what she had said to Grandpa in the study. He gazed at her, stating he never once regretted their arranged, whirlwind marriage. In fact, marrying her was the single greatest blessing of his entire life. Seeing him finally open up, she asked gently, "What is the plan with Grandpa? He is a tough nut to crack." Logan stared into the distance, his eyes blazing with absolute determination. He declared he spent his life fearing Grandpa's disappointment, but this time he wouldn't compromise on his dream. Chloe smiled happily, burying herself back in his chest as their fingers intertwined in the night. But their beautiful moment was shattered by a sudden frantic ringing from Logan's phone. An air doctor was on the line, shouting in complete panic, "Dr. Lin, don't move him, I am on my way up." The words hit Logan like a physical blow, draining all the color from his face. He spun around in terror, yelling to Chloe, "Grandpa collapsed at home, call 911 right now." They turned and bolted at full speed through the massive wooden gates of the estate. Cut to the hospital room, heavy with the sharp smell of antiseptic. Grandpa lay frail in bed with an IV dripping and a blood pressure cuff wrapped around his arm. Having stayed up all night, worrying Logan and Chloe hovered closely by his side. Seeing his eyelids flutter open, Chloe almost squealed with absolute relief. She leaned in quickly, asking Grandpa, "You are awake, how are you feeling? Are you in any pain?" Grandpa looked around blankly, weakly muttering about wanting his glasses. Chloe rushed to grab his black-rimmed glasses, carefully sliding them onto his face. With his glasses on, his mind cleared instantly. He noticed the pulse oximeter and the neurosurgery sign on the wall. Using his decades of elite medical experience, he immediately knew things were incredibly serious. He glared at the young couple, warning them weakly but firmly that they couldn't hide anything from a veteran like him. Realizing it was pointless to lie, Logan lowered his eyes and decided to face the truth. He told him heavily that the scans showed a serious brain tumor. The grim diagnosis struck the proud old man silent, a flash of profound helplessness crossing his eyes. He sank back into his pillow, scoffing weakly, "Well, you finally got your wish. Once I am gone, nobody can stop you." The bitter words tore at Logan's heart, making him cry out in pain, "Grandpa, please." Chloe stepped in to comfort him, insisting his health was the only thing that mattered to them. Grandpa went quiet for a moment, then asked what the surgical team's consensus was. Logan explained honestly that surgery was an option, but the risks were sky-high due to his age and the tumor's location. But without it, the tumor would keep growing and eventually crush his brain tissue and nerves. But Grandpa's innate stubbornness and fierce pride flared right back up. He barked with closed eyes, "Operate. I've snatched countless lives from the grave, I can damn well save my own." Logan tried to urge him to reconsider with the medical board, but Grandpa shut him down with a sharp wave of his hand. Then his voice dropped to a nervous whisper, strictly ordering them not to breathe a word of this to Grandma. He muttered that since she was furious and moved out, she wouldn't bother coming anyway. But just as he thought his secret was safe, the heavy hospital door slammed open with a loud bang. Grandma marched into the room, her face absolutely thunderous with fury. She slammed her bag onto the nightstand, glaring down at him coldly. "So how long were you planning to keep this from me?" Caught red-handed, Grandpa gasped, instantly losing his swagger as his eyes darted around in pure panic. Chloe smirked from the side, snitching that Grandma had actually found out immediately. Grandma rolled her eyes at him, sitting down on the edge of the bed with absolute authority. She scolded him loudly, stating she was his legal next of kin, and no less. Chloe finally let out a massive sigh of relief, wiping the sweat from her brow and calmly ordering the suture prep. Having successfully saved his own patient, Logan sprinted over to Chloe's trauma bay as fast as his legs could carry him. He burst through the door, looking around frantically and asking if everyone was stable. The nurse beamed with admiration, eager to give him the full report. She told him it was a massive tension pneumothorax, but Dr. Chloe took charge and nailed the chest tube solo. Logan looked at Chloe in surprise, then put his stethoscope to the patient's chest to verify. Hearing clear bilateral breath sounds, a wave of immense pride washed over his face. He pulled his mask down, stepped up to her, and praised her genuinely. Incredible job. He teased her proudly, saying she was finally starting to look like a seasoned attending surgeon. Chloe smirked, throwing him a playful sharp military salute and chirping message received Dr. Lin. I'll keep it up. Looking at her adorable face, Logan couldn't help but flash a deeply loving, melting smile. Their intense chemistry had the surrounding nurses whispering and giggling about the sudden romantic tension in the room. Later that day, Logan was having lunch across from his colleague, Dr. Kevin. In the bustling Chloe only stared coldly and ignored her completely. Serena played her role to the end, till weakly let go of her hand, took a step back and said timidly, "Sister, do you dislike me? If my presence makes you uncomfortable then." Saying this, she cast a helpless look toward the two brothers. Chris, always a Sister Zan protecting freak, stood up immediately. He pointed at Chloe's nose and barked angrily. "What kind of attitude is that? Serena is showing you kind concern, and you're throwing a tantrum. You're just a girl from the countryside. Do you have any manners at all?" Before his interrogation could finish, Chloe's clear inner voice echoed in the living room again. This time, the gossip completely shattered the family's world. Chloe's inner voice sneered with heavy sarcasm. "Oh, what a great show of a rabid dog protecting its food. But wait, whose baby is it in Serena's stomach anyway? She and Chris haven't even crossed the final line yet. So this child, could it be from that night at the hotel with the eldest brother Ethan?" Boom, this inner voice was like a thunderbolt, leaving both brothers completely dazed. Eleanor's eyes widened to the limit and her whole body shook with rage. Hearing the words, "Serena and Ethan had a night," Chris instantly lost his mind. He turned violently, grabbed Ethan's suit collar tightly, and roared with bloodshot eyes, "You touched her, you actually touched my woman." Facing his brother's sudden fury, a flash of panic crossed Ethan's eyes. He struggled to break free while explaining, "I didn't. I never did such a thing, don't listen to her nonsense." Meanwhile, Chloe sat in the middle, calmly sipping her tea while updating the plotline through her system. Thus, her real Zan-time inner voice echoed in the living room again. "Wait, that doesn't seem right either. The eldest brother was hospitalized that night, so he has a solid alibi. Instead, it was Chris who was dead drunk at the bar. It seems the person who rushed to the hotel to mess around with Serena was Chris himself. No wonder he doesn't even remember it. What a pair of fools." Hearing this, the two brothers were completely bewildered. They didn't know whether to release each other's collars or not. The scene was awkwardly beyond words. Seeing them about to fight over a woman, Eleanor could no longer hold her anger. She slammed her teacup onto the table, stood up furiously, and screamed at her sons, "Enough, you are births." Higgins ran in from the kitchen looking panicked. She shouted, "What happened?" and rushed over to check Serena's burn. Seeing a red mark on Serena's wrist, Mrs. Higgins cried out exaggeratingly, "Oh, Miss Serena, how did it get burned like this, madam? Do we have any burn ointment? I'll go get it right away." Chloe looked at Mrs. Higgins, a playful smile curling on her lips. Mrs. Higgins acting more anxious than a biological mother. "Oh, I remember now. It turns out Mrs. Higgins is another secret lover this old man Arthur keeps in the house. A trash man is a trash man, never wasting an opportunity. These two flirt and send secret signals right in front of my mom, thinking everyone else is blind." Hearing this, Eleanor's hands on her lap gripped her clothes into deep creases. Her gaze slowly shifted from her husband to the old maid who had served them for over a decade. Chloe's inner voice continued to deliver the fatal blow. No wonder this old man took so long to get home from his trip tonight. As it turns out, on his way back he made a detour to a motel and had a wild session with Mrs. Higgins for several hours. If you don't believe it, look at Mrs. Higgins' collar. The hickey inside is deep purple. She buttoned her high collar so tightly just to hide the mark on her neck. At this point, Eleanor's final boundary was completely crossed. She slammed the table, rattling the bowls and utensils. Without a word, she rushed forward in her high heels, shoved her husband Arthur aside, and tightly grabbed Mrs. Higgins' collar. Under everyone's shocked stares, Eleanor's eyes looked ready to shoot fire. She stared at Mrs. Higgins, her voice freezing cold. "Who put this mark on your neck? If you don't explain it clearly today, get the hell out of this house." Mrs. Higgins turned pale with fear, her body shaking violently. She covered her collar with both hands and defended herself with tears. "Madam, what are you saying? This is my personal privacy. You cannot humiliate me like this. Seeing things go wrong, Arthur rushed to break up the fight, trying to smooth things over. Honey, calm down. Mrs. Higgins has worked here for over 10 years and has always been dedicated. She is getting older, so finding a companion is only human nature. Questioning her privacy in public like this seems a bit inappropriate and unreasonable. Arthur, shut your filthy mouth. Eleanor turned sharply and slapped her husband hard across the face. She pointed at his nose and snapped, I'm talking to her, why are you interfering? You're so eager to cover for her. Do you have something to hide? Serena, lying on the floor, saw the fire spreading to her father and Mrs. Higgins. She crawled forward, pulled Eleanor's skirt, and pleaded through tears, Auntie, please don't be angry, it's all my fault. It has nothing to do with Mrs. Higgins, please don't make it hard on her. But Serena's pleading only brought a colder exposure from Chloe's inner voice. That emotionless female voice turned the family. Everyone looked over to see a young man in a dark pinstripe suit, tall and noble, walking in with long strides. It was Calvin, the legal heir to the massive Calvin group. Seeing Calvin, Arthur caught him like a saving straw. He forced a flattering smile and went to greet him, shaking hands. Oh, Calvin, what a surprise. Please come in. The house is a bit messy today. Sorry for the scene. Eleanor also took a deep breath, suppressing her anger, and nodded politely to Calvin. Calvin bowed politely to the elders and spoke in a deep magnetic voice. Uncle, Auntie, sorry for the sudden intrusion. My parents asked me to come by to formally discuss the details of my upcoming engagement with Serena. Hearing the word engagement, Chloe couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Then her sharp gossip thoughts exploded right on time in the minds of Calvin and everyone else. Chloe's inner voice was filled with deep pity and mockery. Well, this handsome guy is the legendary young Master Calvin. He looks refined and honorable, and judging by his voice, he is a pure virgin. Too bad his taste in women is awful, an absolute sucker and cuckold. He has no idea that the child in Serena's stomach isn't his at all. Before even getting married, the green hat on his head is large enough to start a sheep ranch. So pitiful. Calvin's body stiffened violently the moment he heard this voice. A massive shockwave hit his calm eyes. He turned his head sharply, shooting a piercing glare at Chloe, who was looking at him playfully. Calvin's mind was in total chaos. Who is this woman? That voice, was it her inner thoughts? How does she know secrets I never told anyone? And she says Serena's baby isn't mine. The atmosphere in the dining room became bizarrely tense. Everyone was processing this nuclear bomb thrown by Chloe. Chris reacted first, coughing awkwardly, and walked over to introduce her to Calvin. Calvin, let me introduce you. This is our biological sister Chloe, who just came back from the countryside. She's new to the house and might not know all the manners yet. Please don't mind. Ethan, completely hopeless regarding Serena and his father, walked to Calvin's other side with a pale face. He patted Calvin's shoulder and whispered with deep sympathy, Calvin, as your Long's End time brother, let me give you a piece of advice when you go back. Use your family's power to thoroughly investigate your fiancée Serena. Don't be kept in the dark like a fool. Hearing Ethan's words and connecting them with the unbelievable inner voice, Calvin's suspicion of Serena spiked to the peak. But as an heir raised by a top family, his composure was deep. He maintained his flawless elegance. He took one last look at Chloe, then spoke politely to Arthur and Eleanor. Uncle, Auntie, since you have family matters to handle, it would be improper for me to stay. Regarding the engagement, I will bring my parents to visit in a few days. I'll take my leave now. Without looking at Serena on the floor, he turned and walked out with long strides. Seeing Calvin leave so coldly, Serena panicked completely. Ignoring the broken porcelain on the floor, she scrambled up, lifted her skirt, and chased after him, crying out, Calvin, wait, let me explain. Arthur, sitting in the main seat, felt his guilt reach the maximum. Looking at Eleanor's murderous gaze and his son's furious stares, he knew he would lose a layer of skin if he stayed. He scratched his head and stammered an excuse. Honey, I just remembered a highly urgent international meeting at the company. The executives are waiting for me. I'll head to the office to handle it and explain everything to you later. Without even grabbing his coat, he fled out the door like his pants were on fire. Watching the toxic couple run away one by one, Chloe felt tonight's drama was worth every penny. She put down her teacup, slowly brushed her skirt, stood up, and smiled at the pale Eleanor and the brothers. Mom, Ethan, Chris, the show is over and everyone has scattered. I'm going upstairs to wash up and sleep. Enjoy your chat. She walked upstairs with light steps under their complex gazes. Left in the hall, Eleanor looked at the empty table and collapsed into a chair. Late at night, a violent searching sound came from the second sand floor hallway. Eleanor, after calming down, had marched into Serena's bedroom with Ethan and Chris. They tore through the room like crazy, pulling clothes out of the closet, flipping the bedding, and scattering makeup all over the floor. However, after a chaotic search, they found nothing but ordinary clothes and items. There was no solid evidence of acid transfers, poison, or fake reports. Chris, looking at the mess, started to waver. He rubbed his sore neck and said to Eleanor, Mom, were we too impulsive? The room is completely clean. Could we really be misunderstanding Serena? After all, those words were just Chloe's inner voice. What if she and growled through gritted teeth, let's go to the office. The brothers exchanged shocked and disgusted looks and quickly followed their mother. The corporate building was completely silent at night, with only the top 10th floor executive office lit up. Eleanor, in her high heels, stepped out of the elevator with Ethan, Chris, and Chloe following along to enjoy the show. The receptionist secretary turned pale at the sight and rushed out to block Eleanor. Zan, madam, why are you here at this hour? The chairman is locked in a meeting with a highly important client for a major international deal. He ordered no interruptions. Please don't make it hard on me. Wait in the lounge. To hell with his major deal. Chris lost his patience completely. He stepped forward, grabbed the secretary's arm, and threw her aside, roaring, get out of the way. Even if the sky falls today, nothing is more important than my mom. The secretary stumbled, but having taken bribes or knowing the truth, she threw herself against the heavy wooden door of the office, crying out with a pale face, Madam, really you can't. The chairman is truly discussing business. The building was terrifyingly quiet. Eleanor stood before the door, her heavy breathing audible from extreme rage. Meanwhile, Chloe, drinking water on a nearby sofa, launched her targeted thoughts right on time. Her clear voice laughed in their minds. Ha ha ha, this secretary is truly loyal, holding the door so tight, because she is afraid the old man won't have time to pull up his pants. But don't worry, a midnight session on a leather sofa is bound to be a spectacular view. The old man's back is probably breaking right now. The show is about to start. Mom, don't hesitate. Kick the door down. Hearing this, Eleanor's last shred of sanity vanished. Her internal fury exploded into immense power. She shoved the secretary aside hard and kicked the executive office door with her sharp high heel, pushing it open with a loud slam. The heavy wooden door slammed against the wall. The piercing light from the office poured out. Eleanor strode across the threshold with her two sons and the spectator Chloe. Seeing the scene inside, Ethan and Chris felt their stomachs churn, nearly throwing up on the spot. On the wide Haidzan and leather sofa, Arthur and Serena sat together in total disarray. Several buttons on Serena's white shirt were undone, her face flushed. She was frantically helping Arthur, whose tie was crooked and shirt messy, adjust his collar with sweaty hands. Seeing Eleanor break in with the family, Arthur and Serena looked like their eyes would pop out of their heads. Serena's eyes flashed with extreme terror, but being a top 10 tier green tea, she quickly switched to a victim face. Frantically buttoning her shirt, she stood up, explaining with a trembling voice, Haidzan auntie, it is not what you think. Please don't misunderstand. I just came to pour hot water for uncle. My hand shook and spilled it on his suit. I saw his clothes were wet, so I was just helping him wipe it with the tissue. We were really just discussing business. Arthur finally found his voice too, straightening his tie while loudly backing her up. Yes, exactly. Honey, Serena is just thoughtful. We were truly just discussing the project contract. She only helped me tidy up because of the spill. Look at you, making a scene and bringing the kids to break the door at midnight. If this gets out, what will the employees think of me as the chairman? Where is my dignity? The two brothers stood by, listening to these terrible, flawed lies, their fists clenching until their knuckles cracked. Behind them, Chloe stood with her arms crossed, a cold smile on her face like looking at corpses. Her chilly thoughts echoed in everyone's minds, delivering the final sentence to the toxic pair. Wow, lying without even a script. Spilling water leads to hugging on a sofa and mismatching buttons. Hilarious. Mom, don't buy their nonsense. If you want to know if they're innocent, just flip over the cushion of that leather sofa. That shameless woman's purple intimate underwear is still warm, hidden right under the cushion. Let's see them explain what kind of international client needs to deliver a personal sample like that. This thought acted like a fatal blow, cutting off all escape routes for them. Hearing the words, purple intimate underwear, Serena felt like she was struck by lightning. Her face turned paler than a corpse, and her body swayed, nearly collapsing. Arthur's legs went soft, almost kneeling before the sofa in pure terror. Eleanor stared at the leather sofa, her gaze cold like a poisoned blade. She squeezed the words through her teeth, get out of the way. Arthur panicked completely, using his fat body to block the cushion. He forced a flattering, begging smile, stammering as he held Eleanor's arm. Jen honey, listen to me, this sofa hasn't been cleaned in forever. It's filthy inside, full of dust and nasty things. Don't touch it with your noble hands. If you get dirty or scratched, it would break my heart. Let's go home and talk. Okay, I beg you, get off me. Eleanor's strength was terrifying right now. She threw his hand off and delivered another loud slap across Arthur's face along with a furious roar. Arthur stumbled and fell against the desk. Eleanor strode to the sofa in her high heels. Amidst Serena's terrified screams, she reached out and violently flipped the large leather sofa cushion over. As the cushion was tossed aside, a piece of delicate purple lace underwear was exposed completely to everyone's sight. night, silence. The entire executive office fell into a dead silence. That purple garment was like a loud slap delivered straight to their faces, tearing away their final piece of cover. Dad, Serena, you two animals. Chris stared at the scene, his eyes bloodshot, furious tears finally bursting out. He pointed at his own father, screaming hysterically, his body shaking from extreme disgust and rage. Ethan closed his eyes tightly, taking a deep breath and turning away, feeling his blood run backwards. This was the father he respected, and the sister they cherished for 8 years. Absolutely repulsive and monstrous. Arthur looked at the clothing, knowing he was completely finished. But as a thick-skinned businessman, he came up with another absurd excuse that treated everyone like idiots. Wiping his cold sweat, his face flushed, he shouted, "Honey, listen to me, this is really just a misunderstanding. This garment was delivered this morning by our RID department, and the client has the latest female product sample for review." Yes, a sample. Serena, representing her group, was just reviewing the design and quality to take back for market research. "We truly did nothing, you must believe me." Just then the receptionist secretary rushed into the room. Seeing the chaos and receiving Arthur's look, Ty immediately lied to back him up. "Yes, madam, I can testify to that. A client did deliver a batch of new underwear samples this morning for the chairman's approval. The young lady was just helping him organize files, and in the rush, it accidentally slipped under the cushion. This was just a work mistake. It's my fault. Please don't blame the chairman or the young lady." Seeing support arrive, Serena leaned weakly against the sofa, clutching her chest, crying uncovered. Opened. A senior doctor wearing a white coat and gold. Completely, isn't that right? Eleanor lost control entirely, her voice filled with a desperate crying tone. Seeing his mother completely broken down, Ethan stepped forward, hugging her shoulders to comfort her while glaring viciously at Chloe. He spoke coldly to the doctor and secretary. "Doctor, I'm terribly sorry. My mom went through too much shock today and lost control of her emotions. Since Serena is fine, we will wait for her to wake up. I will take her to a quiet place to talk everything through. That will be all for today. Thank you for your trouble." Then he have to enforce the weeping Eleanor away, walking down the long hallway with the grim-faced Chris. Chloe was left standing alone in the hospital corridor. Watching their retreating backs, she felt zero hurt from her mother's screaming. Instead, a playful mocking smirk appeared on her face. She knew the seed of doubt had already grown into a fruit of destruction. No matter how Eleanor denied it on the surface, the hypocritical masks of Serena, Arthur, and the doctor had been torn to pieces by her inner thoughts. The downfall of the family had entered an irreversible countdown. The final frame faded onto Chris walking out of the hospital building alone under the quiet sunlight. He raised his head slightly, looking at the piercing sun. His eyes were completely hollow, filled with confusion and fear of the future as he tightly clenched his fist in loneliness. At the dinner table tonight, the tension is so thick you can barely breathe. Chloe, the manipulative adopted daughter, has teary eyes and looks deeply wronged. She looks at Victoria at the head of the table and whining in a fake sweet voice, "Auntie, things at the company are just too hectic lately. You already have nervous exhaustion from the past trauma. As your junior, I am just genuinely worried that your body won't be able to take it." Richard, the deadbeat husband who married into wealth, puts down his fork and adjusts his glasses. He chimes in eagerly to back her up. "Oh, absolutely, honey. Chloe is spot on. The company's business is pretty complicated right now. Plus, you haven't been around for so long, you probably aren't familiar with the new changes. I really think you should just stay home and rest." Listening to their coordinated good intentions, Victoria calmly puts down his soup spoon. Her sharp eyes cut through Richard and Chloe like knives. She lets out a cold mocking laugh. "I built this company from scratch all by myself. I am more than capable of taking it back now, but you two are acting pretty weird today. Why so nervous? Are you afraid that once I return, I might suddenly find out about something?" Hearing Victoria's interrogation, panic flashes across Richard and Chloe's faces. Meanwhile, Serena, the real daughter, is sitting there pretending to be invisible, shoving food into her mouth with a perfectly calm face, but her massive inner monologue is literally exploding in everyone's minds. "Of course they're afraid you'll find out. Those two shameless freaks don't even know there are cameras in the office, doing their dirty business in there all day long. And Mom, your so-called illness is not a medical issue at all. It is entirely because Richard, that ungrateful parasite, has been secretly drugging you to steal the company. That shady Dr. Chloe brought in gave you prescriptions meant to make you worse, so you would die sooner. No wonder you got better the moment you divorced him and stopped taking their pills." This massive bomb of information explodes in Victoria's brain like thunder. Stunned to her core, she tightly grips the edge of her shirt. The man she shared a bed with for decades was actually a poisonous snake trying to kill her. Suppressing the chaos in her heart, she slams her hand on the table. The loud bang makes Richard and Chloe shudder in pure terror. Victoria points right at Chloe's nose and snaps coldly, "And you know your place. In this house, whether I go back to work is none of an outsider's business." Chloe's eyes fill with tears, and she immediately plays the victim card. "I am sorry, Auntie, it is my fault for talking too much. I'll leave right now and lock myself in my room to reflect." She covers her face, sobbing, and runs runs out of the dining room. Richard's heart breaks for her. He calls out Chloe's name and rushes out of his seat to chase after her. Watching their hypocritical backs leave, only Victoria, her 2 sons, and Serena are left in the room. Serena, still casually eating, feels incredibly satisfied and keeps roasting them in her head. Wow, the mask is finally slipping off, but honestly, my second brother Lucas is just a pathetic joke. He has no idea he is actually Richard's biological son, carrying that same trash DNA. Too bad his ending is a total nightmare. After they use him up, they'll find him annoying, hire some thugs to beat him to death, and throw him into a ditch like garbage. What a textbook definition of a simp. Chasing them until the end, only to lose everything. Victoria's gaze turns ice cold as she processes all of this. A moment later, Richard walks back, trying to force the awkward vibe away. He chuckles nervously and says, "Honey, Chloe was just looking out for you. Why did you have to blow up like that?" Victoria fires back coldly. "Oh, so you are heartbroken just because I said a few words to her. You are protecting her with your life. Is she your secret little mistress or something?" This hits Richard right where it hurts. He almost jumps out of his chair, waving his hands in a frantic panic. What kind of nonsense is that? Fine. If you want to go back to the company, go ahead. I happen to have a big deal to negotiate in New York. I'll leave all the operations to you for the next couple of days. Richard gulps down his soup, desperately hiding his guilty face. After dinner, in the empty hallway, the oldest brother Ethan runs into Chloe. Her eyes are red and swollen. Seeing Ethan, she immediately flips into her fragile, helpless mode again. Ever since Serena came back, Auntie has been snapping at me constantly. "Ethan, does Auntie just hate me? I know I might be crossing the line, but I really envy Serena. She can do whatever she wants in this house, unlike me, living in fear every single day." She thought this classic manipulation would win his sympathy and comfort, but to her absolute shock, Ethan just gives her a cold stare, answering with total brute honesty, "If you feel that uncomfortable living here, you are more than welcome to move out." Chloe's eyes widen, completely speechless. Serena, walking by with a glass of water, almost bursts out laughing. She screams in her head, "Ethan, you are an absolute legend. She wanted a comfort hug, and you literally told her to pack her bags." Chloe turns and sees Serena watching the drama. She completely loses it and screams hysterically, "You trailer, trash hillbilly, how dare you eavesdrop on us?" Serena shrugs and replies unhurriedly, "I was just going to my room to rest. You guys are screaming like thunder. Don't blame me for your loud mouths." Chloe goes ballistic and hurls insults. "A redneck will always be a redneck. You have zero manners." Hearing her insult his biological sister, Ethan's face instantly darkens. He steps forward and growls at Chloe, "Watch your mouth. Chloe, don't forget you grew up in the mud too. What gives you the right to look down on anyone?" Exposed in public, Chloe shakes with pure rage, but she can't find a single word to fire back. She can only bite her lip hard. Ethan turns around, takes the glass from Serena, and warns her in his usual bossy tone, "Stop wasting your time on this trash. It is nauseating." Serena rolls her eyes at him, asking if they are even that close for him to touch her things. Ethan looks a bit embarrassed, turns his head away, and mumbles an apology. He explains he was just used to taking care of her back then he quickly changes the subject. "Fine, I'll buy you a gift later. By the way, those pink overalls you are wearing look hideous. Don't wear them again." Chloe stands in the back watching them bicker. That effortless, blood-related intimacy makes her go insane with jealousy. She clenches her fist so hard her nails dig into her flesh. She swears in her heart, "Serena, just you wait, this isn't over." The scene shifts to a cozy living room. The television is playing a show, and Victoria is relaxing on the sofa. Suddenly, the doorbell rings aggressively. Victoria opens the door and sees Mr. Harrison, the CFO of the company, standing there. Victoria smiles politely. "Thank you for driving me home today, Harrison." Mr. Harrison adjusts his glasses with a deeply respectful, kissing up smile. "You are way too kind, Chairman Victoria. We've been classmates for years, and you are my old boss. This is the least I could do." Hearing the noise, Ethan walks over. He greets his mother, then stares down Harrison with guarded, suspicious eyes, asking who he is. Victoria introduces him with a smile. "This is Uncle Harrison, our CFO. He was also my best friend in college." Ethan gives a polite, formal nod, and Harrison smiles back. Victoria then turns to her son and says, "Your Uncle Harrison worked overtime to audit the internal books for me. He did find some minor red flags. Once your father gets back from his trip, I will host an official transition ceremony and publicly take back control of the company." Hearing her mother's plan, Serena, who is casually eating potato chips, sighs with pity and mocks in her mind, "Oh mom, you are so smart but so blind right now. This Harrison guy looks like a loyal dog and a devoted secret admirer, but he sold you out a long time ago." Richard grabs Harrison's arm tightly. A flash of absolute ruthlessness crosses her eyes. Ethan instantly senses his mother's mood shift. He steps in front of Harrison, his voice ice cold and clearly kicking him out. "Mr. Harrison, I am afraid our maids are all off today. We didn't prepare extra food, so we won't be keeping you for dinner." Harrison senses the bizarre, awkward tension. He looks at Victoria's freezing glare, forces a smile, and lets go. "All right then, I'll take my leave. Get some rest, Victoria. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning." He turns around and leaves rather awkwardly. Once the door shuts and Harrison is gone, Ethan asks anxiously, "Mom, if what Serena is thinking is true, what are we going to do at the ceremony 2 days from now?" The panic on Victoria's face vanishes instantly, replaced by the cold, ruthless tone of a powerhouse businesswoman. She stares ahead, gritting her teeth. "Richard, that parasite has lived off my family for decades, and now he dares to screw me over. Does he really think I am a pushover?" She turns to Ethan and asks coldly, "Do you remember Serena's thoughts? She mentioned Richard and Chloe having an affair in the office, and that there is a hidden security camera." Ethan nods immediately, getting the point. Victoria lets out a dark smirk. "At the ceremony, if Richard behaves, we'll leave it at that. But if he is tired of living and tries to frame me for cheating, I will make sure he ruins his own life in front of the whole world." Soon, the day of the grand ceremony arrives. The finest gala hall in Los Angeles is glowing. The massive backdrop reads, "Chairman Transition Ceremony." The city's elites and major media reporters fill the room with cameras everywhere. Richard, looking sharp in a custom suit, walks around the crowd confidently with Victoria. A wealthy businessman walks up with a wineglass and toasts to Richard. "Mr. Richard, you are a lucky man. You and your wife have been together for years. You are the ultimate power couple." Victoria, stunning in a white embroidered suit, smiles elegantly back, but her hands under her sleeves are ice cold. The disgust in her heart has peaked watching his smug, fake face. In a quiet corner of the hall, two guests whisper with deep disdain, "Power couple, give me a break." Everyone knows Richard started as a nobody. If it weren't for Victoria's money and status, he'd still be in the dirt. The woman nods in agreement. "Exactly." The moment Victoria announced her rest, he instantly changed the company name to his own. A blind man could see he is trying to hijack the entire fortune. Chloe, wearing a glamorous off-the-shoulder dress, hears every single insult from nearby, but instead of being angry, a wicked smirk appears on her face. She sneers internally, "Keep talking, you idiots. After today, Victoria will be a homeless dog, and I will be the queen of this empire." Suddenly, the lights dim, and a spotlight hits the center stage. The host loudly invites Richard up to speak. Surrounded by flashing lights, Richard walks up gracefully. He takes off his glasses to wipe them, putting them back on with a deeply emotional face. He takes a deep breath and speaks into the mic with dramatic passion. "Guests, friends from the media, I know for many years, most of you thought I wasn't good enough for her. It is true. Victoria came from a wealthy family, and I was just a poor kid from the country. But back then, she ignored her family's warnings and chose to be with me anyway. For that, my heart is filled with endless gratitude, and I have cherished her more than life itself." Chloe stands below, rolling her eyes, screaming in cameras and mics, trapping Victoria and her two sons. Flashbulbs go off like crazy, blinding everyone in sight. Reporters shove mics in Victoria's face, firing questions like bullets. "Chairman Victoria, is what he said true? Did you really cheat on your husband? How could you do this to your family?" Victoria, face to face with the sudden attack, her face goes pale and she tries to explain, "It's not true. Don't listen to his lies. I didn't cheat." As the situation spirals into absolute chaos, Chloe bursts into tears, pushing through the crowd onto the stage. She bites her lip, accusing Victoria with a heartbreaking tone, "Auntie, how could you be so heartless? Uncle worked day and night for this family. How could you betray him like this? Yesterday afternoon, I went to give you a hot drink. The moment I pushed the office door open, I saw you and Mr. Harrison locked in a disgusting embrace." Serena watches their little tag team show, crossing her arms with a deeply scornful smirk, while the trash husband and the White Lotus really practiced this routine. To steal the company, they literally threw away their humanity. The crowd and media are completely brainwashed. The hall fills with insults aimed at Victoria. "Unbelievable. She looks so elegant on the outside, but she's a total fraud. No wonder she wanted the company back so fast. She wanted to run away with her lover and the money." Ethan and Lucas stand by their mother, their faces red with fury, their fists clenching so hard they pop. Ethan can't take it anymore. He steps forward and screams at the cameras with everything he has got. "All of you shut up. My mother gave her whole life to this family. She would never do something so vile. This is a complete setup, maliciously fabricated without a shred of proof." Richard watches Ethan's desperate struggle with a sinister smirk. He sneers and fires back loudly, "No proof, you say? Fine, today, I'll let the whole city see the ironclad evidence in my hands." Richard waves his hand sharply to the tech crew in the back. The next second, the massive LED screen in the center of the hall lights up. Everyone turns around and sees a massive bank wire transfer receipt, along with detailed internal company accounts. Chloe cries even louder on stage, wiping her tears while acting like a hero. "Everyone, I risked getting fired to secretly get these records from finance. I just couldn't watch Uncle's life work get drained by a parasite." Looking at the transfer receipts, the crowd goes wild, cursing at Victoria openly. But just when everyone thinks Victoria is completely finished, she calmly adjusts her white blazer. She slowly lifts her head, and her panicked face suddenly morphs into a freezing, mocking, and breathtakingly confident smile. She turns sideways, crosses her arms, and stares at the smug Richard like he is a circus clown. Richard's heart skips a beat under her creepy smile. A cold sweat breaks out across his back. Chloe notices notices Victoria's expression too. Her crying stops instantly. She freezes on the spot, a terrible feeling of doom creeping over her. Ethan and Lucas see their mother's confidence and smirk, flanking her safely on both sides. Victoria elegantly lifts her hands and claps twice loudly. Her voice is calm but echoes through the room. My friends from the media, Richard is right about one thing. God is watching. Who is actually betraying the family? Who is illegally draining the company's fortune? Now, let's all take a very close look at the real ironclad evidence on this screen. The moment she finishes, the LED screen displaying the fake accounts flickers violently. Then, a crystal clear surveillance video starts playing on the bright screen. The setting is undeniably the CEO's office. In the video, Richard and Chloe are locked in a passionate, desperate kiss, completely ignoring the world. They are loudly plotting how to secretly poison Victoria's drinks to make her lose her mind so they can seize full control. Not only that, the video clearly documents Richard and Harrison's secret meetings to forge the cheating evidence, along with every single transaction transferring billions of dollars to over a dozen offshore accounts. The moment the footage plays, the loud hall falls into a graveyard silence. Then, a massive wave of gasps and screams explodes 100 times louder than before. Oh my god, what a massive twist. The real cheater is Richard. He's sleeping with his own adopted daughter, and he wanted to poison his wife to death. This is pure evil. He is a monster. Chloe stares at the screen showing her affair, her face turning ghost white. She collapses to the floor, screaming like a maniac at the screen. It is fake. It is all fake. Victoria used AI technology to frame us with deepfakes. Security, someone turn off the screen. Turn it off now. Richard panics, stumbling back several steps, his tie completely crooked. He points at Victoria and screams, Victoria, you are lying through your teeth. How dare you use fake evidence to ruin my reputation and steal my shares? Victoria doesn't say a single word. She just watches the two clowns struggling under the spotlight. At that moment, a righteous female guest can't stand it anymore. She marches forward, takes her wine glass, and hurls the red wine right at Richard's feet. She points at his nose and barks, Richard, you shameless gold digger. If it weren't for her family, you'd still be begging for food. Now that you are rich, you want to destroy your savior. The real piece of trash who cheated and drained the assets is you. You make our whole high society sick. The media and guests snap out of it. Every camera and flashbulbs instantly pivot, focusing entirely on Richard and Chloe's terror-stricken faces. Victoria walks up to the podium, pulls out a tablet, and holds it up high for everyone to see. Her voice carries the weight of a gavel. Richard, Chloe, stop wasting your breath. The real name records of the Cayman accounts have been legally seized by the police. Your crimes of marital infidelity, long-term poisoning, and corporate embezzlement are fully backed by solid evidence. As the founder and largest shareholder, I officially announce today, Richard is stripped of all duties and banned from the board permanently. Chloe is stripped of her student status and fired from all positions. The company will press full criminal charges. You can spend the rest of your lives in prison. Hearing Victoria's final judgment, Richard and Chloe fall into total despair. Right then, the heavy doors of the hall are slammed open. Several police officers in crisp uniforms stride through the crowd onto the stage. The cold handcuffs click loudly, locking tightly around their wrists. Only when the freezing metal touches his skin does Richard completely break down. His legs go weak, and he drops to his knees at Victoria's feet. He desperately tries to grab her hem, crying and begging like a dog. Victoria, I was wrong. I was manipulated by others. For the sake of our 20 years of marriage, and for our 2 sons, forgive me just this once. Let me go. Victoria's eyes are pure ice. She doesn't even bother to look at him, kicking his hand away fiercely. She spits out one cold word, get out. Under the wild flashing lights and the angry curses of the guests, the broken Richard and Chloe are dragged out of the gala hall like dead dogs. They are completely ruined, heading straight to prison. The carefully planned conspiracy ends with a perfect victory for justice, and Victoria, flanked by her son and daughter, is ready to start a brand new chapter of her business empire. Listen up everyone, the backstage of the New York Appraisal Convention today was absolutely wild. This woman in red, Serena, strutted in like she had some kind of cheat code active. With her arms crossed and her chin tilted higher than the sky, she immediately threw down a blatant provocation at Chloe, the girl standing across from her. Let's make a real bet, Serena sneered. Do you even have the guts, Chloe? Chloe remained as solid as a rock, not even blinking. However, the guy with glasses next to her started to panic, lowering his voice to urge her, Chloe, they have a grandmaster on their side. Maybe I should call in a few experts to back you up. Before his words could even hit the ground, the middle-aged man in the suit next to Serena, Mr. Miller, jumped forward as if his tail had been stepped on. He pointed his finger right at Chloe's nose and barked, Chloe, you are a total jinx. Ever since we brought you back to our family, our once happy household has been torn to shreds. If you ask me, you should have stayed working the fields on that Texas ranch for the rest of your life. Man, this guy sure knew how to sling mud. Chloe let out a cold laugh, just about to strike back, when Sean, who had been silent the whole time, chimed in smoothly from the side. Sister, just how much private money did Dad actually secret away to you? Hearing this, Serena covered her mouth and giggled uncontrollably. uncontrollably, her eyes overflowing with malicious joy. Just when the Miller family thought they had the upper hand and had pushed Chloe to the brink, the ultimate plot twist arrived. Harrison, our powerhouse CEO, strode into the room with his long legs, his expression ice cold as he walked straight to Chloe's side. He scanned the entire room and announced clearly and deliberately, word by word, the Harrison Group will be your backing. You go ahead and choose whatever stone you want. Holy cow, the moment those words came out, the entire venue erupted. The onlookers' eyes nearly popped out of their skulls, and they began whispering frantically among themselves, what is going on? Harrison is actually backing Chloe. Wasn't his original marriage alliance supposed to be with Serena? Yeah, he's actually risking the assets of the entire Harrison conglomerate for a girl from the countryside. Look at that, a literal slap to the face. Chloe turned to look at Harrison, a flash of appreciation gleaming in her eyes as she said with absolute confidence, don't worry, I never fight a battle I am not prepared for. With my ability to see right through these stones, do you really think I can lose? Now that both sides had chosen their stones, Serena, desperate to crush Chloe beneath her feet, immediately shouted, so, who goes first? Following that, with a thoroughly flattering look on her face, she ushered forward the titan of the appraisal world whom they had hired at an exorbitant cost, Master Wright. This Master Wright didn't waste any time either. He walked up to the stone-cutting machine with an authoritative stride. Under the gaze of the entire crowd, the machine roared to life with a thunderous boom, and he sliced right down into the stone Serena had selected. Everyone around held their breath, craning their necks to watch. Along with the sharp screech of friction, Master Wright's blade fell, and the stone split cleanly into two. The middle-aged man in the suit caught one glimpse of the cut surface and instantly started screaming like he had just won the lottery. Oh my god! It is floating green jadeite, and it's the absolute top-tier clarity. Hearing this, the smugness on Sean and Serena's faces was so thick it could practically pour right off the screen. Serena's eyes lit up as she stared at that vibrant streak of green, shrieking with excitement, top-grade jadeite. Quality like this is worth at least $10 million. We are filthy rich. Yes, exactly, as expected of Master Wright. Mr. Miller laughed so hard his mouth could barely close, chiming in repeatedly. Feeling absolutely certain she had won this round, Serena clicked her high heels, swayed her hips over to Chloe, and tossed her head back in sheer arrogance. Dear sister, it looks like the victor has been decided, she gloated. I hope you haven't forgotten our little wager. Chloe, however, merely kept her arms crossed, looking at her coldly before tossing out a few words. What is the rush? The cutting isn't even finished yet. Serena sneered, assuming Chloe was just being stubbornly defensive, but who could have guessed that the drama about to unfold would be an absolute thriller? Master Wright continued the processing on the machine, but as the stone dust peeled away layer by layer, the radiant faces of Sean and Serena turned completely dark at a speed visible to the naked eye. Once the stone was thoroughly washed and opened up, a massive horrifying crack appeared right in the dead center of the otherwise perfect jadeite. Serena completely lost it, screaming hysterically, no no no, such a flawless piece of material completely ruined by this crack. Master Wright's face also turned deathly pale, wiping away cold sweat. He tremblingly pronounced the final death sentence, a top-tier jadeite originally worth 10. Now that the master is done cutting, let's open up my stone quickly. Let everyone have a look so we can settle this wager once and for all. Hearing this, Sean thought it was the perfect chance to reclaim some dignity and immediately jumped out to mock her. Give it a rest, sister. Take the loss like a champ and stop giving Master Wright a hard time. You are just a country girl who doesn't even know what a raw gemstone looks like. Someone who only knows how to talk big. You only came to this convention to put on a comedy show for us. Released from the grip, Master Wright also felt he was losing face. He pointed at Chloe, pulling rank as an elder, and scolded, listen here, girl, how many days have you even spent in the jade business? I've been in this industry for 40 years. Do you honestly think you can best me? What do you know? Faced with this double team attack, Chloe simply pulled a professional flashlight from her pocket, gave it a flick, and walked up to her discarded stone with total composure. She calmly addressed Master Wright. Master Wright, you cut the wrong spot. You should have dropped the blade right along this side texture. Master Wright's mustache practically twitched with rage. What do you know? Do I need you to teach me? From beginning to end, Chloe maintained a queen-like smile. She scanned the room and raised her voice, saying, since you are all supposedly experts in the gemstone game, don't tell me you don't understand the old saying, one cut makes you a beggar, one cut makes you a king. If you don't dare make this cut, could it be that you are just afraid? This reverse psychology worked like an absolute charm. The middle-aged man in the suit gritted his teeth, sneering repeatedly, cut it, I want to see just how long you can keep talking big. If there is nothing inside, let's see how tough you act then. Master Wright let out a cold snort and finally agreed to cut along the line Chloe had specified. The machine roared to life once more, and the entire room fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. Harrison watched intently from behind, while Sean and Serena clenched their fists tight. As Master Wright's blade fell, the worthless rock that everyone had despised was sliced completely into two. The exact moment the master turned the cut faces around with both hands, a miracle occurred. With a sudden burst, a dazzling, incredibly pure green light exploded from the surface, shining so radiantly that people could barely keep their eyes open. Oh my god! The room instantly fell into a dead silence, followed by a roof-raising uproar as everyone stared up at the miraculous sight. Master Wright was completely stunned, his hands trembling violently and his eyes wide out of his head as he muttered to himself, "This must be a masterpiece of God. This is impossible." Sean, Serena, and the middle-aged man stood there frozen, their mouths wide enough to fit a large donut. At that moment, an authoritative antique expert wearing glasses stepped forward shakily. Looking through a magnifying glass, he began shaking with pure excitement, shouting, "Oh my lord, it is top-grade dragonstone jadeite, glass-like clarity. Vivid full-spectrum emerald green, this purity, this translucency, this is a legendary treasure that you don't see once in a century." Hearing these praises, Serena completely collapsed, her face turned as white as paper, her body swayed, and she kept muttering to herself, "Number. That is absolutely impossible. You guys must have rigged this together." Chloe, on the other hand, elegantly crossed her arms, looking down at the slumped Serena with a cold smirk. "Serena, a bet's a bet," she said. "Now, that portion of the Miller family fortune belongs entirely to me." Tossing the once-in-a-century jadeite lightly in her hand, Chloe slowly walked up to the deathly pale Serena. With a mocking smile playing on her lips, she taunted coldly, "Serena, you are nothing but a useless talker now. The Miller family can look forward to total bankruptcy." Serena sat paralyzed on the floor, completely wiped out, her eyes blazing with venomous hatred. She glared at Chloe, cursing through gritted teeth, "Don't get too smug, I'll make sure you regret this." Seeing his sister humiliated, Sean immediately rushed forward to shield Serena, shouting furiously at the whispering onlookers around them, "What are you all talking about? She is my sister. Who gave you the right to whisper about her?" Meanwhile, Harrison, the powerful young tycoon who ruled the entire New York business empire, stood with his hands in his pockets, watching the hysterical, ugly behavior of the Miller siblings with a cold gaze. A flash of admiration gleamed in his eyes as he looked at Chloe, speaking slowly, "Seeing how confident you were just now, it turns out you really knew exactly what you were doing. I knew you weren't one to bluster." Completely desperate, Serena crawled over and tightly grabbed the hem of Harrison's suit pants, weeping miserably like a victim. "Harrison, you have to save me," she begged pitifully. "We have a marriage alliance. You can't just stand by and watch an outsider force me into bankruptcy and drive me out of New York." Standing to the side, Chloe looked at her expressionlessly, delivering a cold final blow. "Stop begging. You made the bet yourself. You lost, so take the hit." At this point, Mr. Miller also shuffled over, his old face twisted into a sycophantic smile as he tried to use past relationships to leverage Harrison. "Harrison, this alliance was personally decided by the elders back in the day. No matter what, Serena is your only true fiancée." Harrison, however, didn't even spare them a glance. Facing the entire crowd of New York elite, his voice was as cold as ice as he announced word for word, "Effective immediately, my marriage alliance with Serena is cancelled. Chloe is the only true future lady of the Harrison family. Why? Why is everyone taking your side?" Serena completely snapped, shrieking and raging on the floor, without a shred of dignity left, looking nothing like a high society heiress. The middle-aged man quickly held her tight, his face utterly humiliated. Sean glared viciously at Harrison and Chloe. Though shaking with rage, he knew the battle was lost, so he could only spit out a bitter threat. "Harrison, you went back on your word. The Miller family will remember this debt today. Just you wait." Harrison didn't even bother looking at them, turning to his assistant to command coldly, "Give the Millers 3 days to complete their asset liquidation, then ensure they disappear from New York entirely." With that, Harrison took Chloe's hand and strode out of the venue under a barrage of envious and jealous stares, leaving Serena screaming in absolute despair behind them. The Miller father and daughter bickered outside the venue, with Serena still looking like she had lost her mind, crying and tugging at Sean's sleeve. "Brother, how could you just let an outsider like Chloe ruin me like this? You have to think of something." Sean, thoroughly annoyed, forcefully threw her hand off, his face darker than a thundercloud. Enough, business warfare is not a game. You dug your own grave this time. The scene shifted to the magnificent, classic grand hall of the Harrison ancestral mansion. At this moment, Serena was kneeling sobbing and weeping before an imposing elderly man dressed in a black Chinese-style tunic jacket. This old man was the supreme authority of the Harrison family, old Mr. Harrison. Serena clutched tightly at the old man's clothes, crying incredibly hard, looking as aggrieved as humanly possible. Grandpa Harrison, you have to stand up for me. Harrison actually went ahead and broke off the engagement. He publicly humiliated me at the convention, all for that country girl Chloe, and now he wants to drive our family out of New York. Sitting nearby, Mr. Miller quickly put on a face of tragic indignation, adding fuel to the fire. Yes, Uncle Harrison actually did such a thing. This is practically trampling our family's friendship into the dirt and completely throwing away the Harrison family's dignity. Hearing this, old Mr. Harrison's weathered face slammed shut in fury. He brought his hand down hard on the precious wood table, his long beard shaking with pure rage as he roared, "They have completely revolted. That foolish boy Harrison, how dare he do something so reckless behind my back?" Seeing the old man fly into a rage, Serena rejoiced in her heart. She quickly assumed a pitiful, obedient demeanor, saying softly, "Yes, Grandpa Harrison, you've always been a man of your word, and you've always treated me the best. You'll set things right for me, won't you?" Old Mr. Harrison took a deep breath, forcing down his anger, and patted her hand reassuringly. "Don't worry, as long as these old bones of mine are around, no one is going to push you around." Seeing the moment was right, Mr. Miller quickly pulled an exquisitely crafted antique wooden box wrapped in yellow silk from his bag, presenting it respectfully with both hands. He smiled warmly. "Uncle, your birthday is coming up soon." Serena went to great lengths and utilized many connections to select this antique jade vase, specifically to wish you a long life. This is a genuine treasure, and we hope it brings a smile to your face. Hearing this, old Mr. Harrison's expression finally softened a bit as he accepted the box. The old man took the beautifully preserved jade vase and examined it carefully in his hands. Seizing the opportunity, Serena leaned in with a flattering smile, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Grandpa Harrison, look at how exquisite the craftsmanship on this vase is. As long as you like it, this treasure will eventually be part of our family's shared wealth anyway, and it is Serena's way of showing respect to you." Mr. Miller also nodded and bowed in agreement from the side. "Yes, absolutely, this treasure is incredibly rare and perfectly suits your status." But who could have predicted that right when the father and daughter thought they had succeeded, Chloe, who had been standing silently behind old Mr. Harrison the entire time, would suddenly speak up, shattering the harmonious atmosphere. "That vase is a fake." Those 5 simple words were like a bombshell dropped into a peaceful lake. Serena's smile instantly froze on her face, and she snapped her head around to glare furiously at Chloe. Sean's face also changed drastically nearby. Mr. Miller lost his temper and shouted, "Bullshit, you are just a girl from the country who doesn't even know what a real antique looks like, yet you dare to spout nonsense here. Uncle, don't listen to this girl's lies." Sean also jumped in to defend his sister, frowning fiercely. "Chloe, you are deliberately trying to cause trouble here, just because you want to destroy my sister's engagement with Harrison, aren't you? How utterly malicious." Old Mr. Harrison furrowed his brows, raising his hand to cut off their arguing. He slowly turned around, his weathered but still sharp eyes staring intently at Chloe, asking seriously, "Girl, on what grounds do you claim this vase is fake? Do you know the price of lying to me?" Faced with old Mr. Harrison's intense pressure, Chloe didn't show an ounce of stage fright. Instead, she took a step forward with complete composure, looking directly at the jade vase as she spoke eloquently. "Grandpa Harrison, although the craftsmanship on this vase is incredibly detailed, even reaching a level that could fool most people, it has never been recorded in any authentic historical literature. Furthermore, the shade of its glaze and the brushwork of its patterns are actually slightly off." Crossing her arms, Chloe looked at the increasingly pale Miller father and daughter, letting out a cold laugh. She then proceeded to recite a shockingly detailed piece of historical court trivia right in front of old Mr. Harrison. "I remember it clearly recorded in books that this exact style of vase was originally commissioned by an ancient emperor for his favorite imperial consort. Later, during a time of war and chaos, the palace was plundered. That consort was a woman of fierce character fearing dishonor. She smashed the vase to pieces right on the spot. It is absolutely impossible for an intact original to have survived down to this day." Chloe described this historical court secret so vividly, it was as if she had witnessed it on the scene with her own eyes. Old Mr. Harrison was completely stunned, looking at Chloe in disbelief. You actually understand antiques? How do you know such specific historical secrets in such detail?" Chloe smiled faintly, nodding calmly. Meanwhile, Serena looked utterly ruined, clutching her clothes tightly with hands covered in cold sweat, her body trembling uncontrollably. She knew that this time, she had truly messed with the wrong person. After listening to Chloe's hardcore breakdown, old Mr. Harrison's face turned incredibly dark. He slammed his hand heavily onto the table, roaring at Mr. Miller and Serena. "So it is a counterfeit. No wonder I felt something was off when they brought it out just now. You Millers certainly have some nerve trying to fool me with a fake. Mr. Miller trembled all over, quickly forcing a smile as he tried frantically to explain, Uncle, it is a mistake. This is a complete misunderstanding. I watched Harrison grow up, and I know he would only call off the engagement because he was misled by this girl Chloe. Serena also threw herself down at old Mr. Harrison's knees, weeping loudly and proclaiming her innocence. Yes, Grandpa Harrison. Chloe is just jealous of me. She is intentionally twisting the truth to slander me in front of you, trying to destroy my happiness with Harrison. Right when the Miller family was crying and doing everything they could to throw mud at Chloe, Harrison, who had been watching coldly, let out a sharp laugh. He smoothly pulled his phone from his suit pocket, opened the photo gallery, and turned it directly toward old Mr. Harrison and the Millers. The photos clearly and undeniably showed Serena just a few days ago at a resort, acting incredibly intimate and hugging another man, right before getting caught red-handed and thrown out in total disgrace. Every angle, every clear shot of her face provided absolute ironclad proof. Harrison's gaze was as sharp as a knife as he looked at the instantly pale Serena, mocking her. Now that you are running out of options outside and want Harrison family protection to survive, you run to Grandpa to flip the script. Telling the truth is called causing trouble now. Your family really is something else. With this hard evidence brought to light, Mr. Miller and Serena were completely silenced, unable to utter a single word. Seeing these disgraceful photos, old Mr. Harrison shook with rage. He grabbed the porcelain teacup next to him and smashed it right at Mr. Miller's feet, sending shards flying everywhere. The old man's face was furious as he pointed at the Millers, roaring, Enough! Your gift is fake, and your character is fake. To think you'd do something so shameless and then dare to lie to my face, completely dishonoring the Harrison name. Get the hell out. When old Mr. Harrison flew into a rage, his authority was truly overwhelming. Pointing at the grand entrance of the hall, he shouted at the Millers, From this moment on, the engagement is void. No member of the Miller family shall ever set foot inside the Harrison estate again. Mr. Miller was completely broken. His legs buckled, nearly bringing him to his knees as he tried one last desperate plea. Uncle, for the sake of the older generation, give us a chance. Old Mr. Harrison didn't pay him the slightest attention, turning his back completely as he called out to the door, Butler, show them out. The butler, who had been waiting outside, immediately marched in with security, walking expressionlessly up to Mr. Miller and Serena. He made a cold gesture toward the exit. This way, please. Serena knew it was all over, and all her disguises were completely ripped away. She slowly stood up, her eyes locked onto Chloe, with a gaze full of frantic malice and venom. Stepping close to Chloe, she lowered her voice and hissed through gritted teeth, You just wait. I will make sure you never have a peaceful day for the rest of your life. With that, a defeated Mr. Miller dragged the hysterical Serena away, escaping the Harrison mansion in utter disgrace under the escort of the guards. Silence finally returned to the hall. Old Mr. Harrison let out a deep sigh, turning to look at his brilliant but stubborn grandson Harrison, and then at Chloe, who stood nearby with quiet dignity. A flash of complex emotion crossed the old man's eyes as he asked Harrison seriously, Harrison, marriage is a milestone in life, not a game. Were those words you announced outside real, or did you just say them to infuriate the Millers? Harrison adjusted his suit, his expression showing a cave. Sean, I suggest you spend your time worrying about how to fulfill the asset liquidation in 3 days, rather than dreaming. Try not to end up homeless on the streets. The scene shifted once more to the warm dining room of the Harrison mansion for a family dinner. The table was loaded with exquisite delicacies, and Harrison's mother, Mrs. Harrison, sat dressed in an elegant gown. Holding Chloe's hand, her eyes crinkled into lines from smiling so hard as she teased Harrison. Oh, look at that. This stubborn boy never shows interest, but when he does, it is quite something. Your taste is exactly like your father's when he was pursuing me back in the day, just as attached. Sitting to the side, Harrison rubbed his nose in embarrassment, lowering his head. The more Mrs. Harrison looked at Chloe, the more she liked her. While scooping food into her bowl, she smiled at old Mr. Harrison, saying, Dad, look at the two of them. Harrison's eyes have been glued to her the entire time. He can't even look away. She really is a lovely girl. Inside the dining room, soft lighting washed over the long dining table, and various fine dishes gave off appetizing aromas. Harrison's father, Mr. Harrison, strode loudly into the room. The moment he sat down, he began blustering in a booming voice, Well, I heard you two are together now. Still, for the welcome banquet tomorrow, only the top tier of high society will be there. Since Chloe comes from a quiet background, won't she feel completely out of place? Hearing this, Mrs. Harrison's Harrison's welcoming expression instantly dropped. She slammed her wine glass onto the table with a sharp thud, giving her husband a fierce glare as she scolded him sharply. "Oh, Chloe, don't listen to his nonsense. Don't misunderstand. Ignore all those rumors outside. Our Harrison has always been perfectly upright and is completely devoted to you." Rebuked by his wife, Mr. Harrison quickly pulled his neck in, sheepishly shifting his chair to the furthest end of the table to focus entirely on eating his food in silence. Turning back with a gentle smile, Mrs. Harrison squeezed Chloe's hand, advising her warmly, "Chloe, I've already instructed the kitchen to prepare several specialty dishes tonight. Just ignore whatever those girls outside are saying. Tomorrow, you just go with Harrison and enjoy yourself. With Grandpa and me backing you up, no one in New York will dare look down on you." Chewing on some snacks with easy confidence, Chloe replied with a smile, "Thank you, Grandpa Harrison, and thank you, Mom. It is really no big deal. You are all being far too kind." Harrison family recently introduced a new fiancée. I hear she is quite calculating, managing to get Harrison to agree to be with her. Sitting nearby, a socialite in a sequin dress immediately leaned in, her face full of disdain as she chimed in, "But just a girl raised out in the countryside. How could she possibly be a match for Harrison? Only you, Veronica, are a perfect balanced match for him in terms of status. That woman will definitely look completely out of place at an event like tomorrow's. I am sure she just used some underhanded tricks. Veronica, you should test her out at the venue tomorrow and show her the massive gap between you two." Listening to her friend's flattery, Veronica lifted her chin proudly, laughing with cold arrogance. "I don't care what tricks she used to fool the Harrisons, but she had better learn her place. Now that I am back, she won't be staying in that position for long. Tomorrow night at 7 at the Apex Club, I'll see for myself exactly what she is made of." As night fell, luxury cars lined up like clouds outside the Apex Club, New York's most exclusive private venue. Inside the grand ballroom, brilliant lights shone and colors gleamed, with practically every notable youth from high society in attendance. Veronica arrived holding her partner's arm, wearing a custom black sequin floor-length evening gown and a priceless diamond necklace. Surrounded by a crowd of wealthy heirs, she stepped into the hall like a reigning queen, instantly drawing every eye in the room. Just then, a commotion stirred near the main entrance as Harrison entered the ballroom, looking exceptionally handsome in a tailored dark suit with Chloe by his side. However, the moment the crowd registered Chloe's outfit, a wave of muffled laughter rippled through the venue. Chloe was actually wearing a thoroughly out-of-place, oversized plaid shirt, faded jeans, and a pair of comfortable sneakers. Amid a crowd of men in tuxedos and women in elegant evening gowns, her attire made her look exactly like a random pedestrian who had wandered into the wrong room. Seeing this, Veronica's friends immediately gathered around her, covering their mouths as they mocked Chloe openly. "Veronica, you look absolutely stunning tonight. But look over there, who shows up to a premium gala in a flannel shirt and jeans? How embarrassing," completely throwing away any sense of dignity. A cold smile flashed in Veronica's eyes. Elegantly picking up 2 glasses of champagne, she walked over to Chloe, under the gaze of the entire room. Looking down at Chloe, she extended a glass of champagne, her tone dripping with condescension and arrogance. "Miss Chloe, are you enjoying the food? Compared to the simple meals you used to have in the countryside, the premium catering here must taste far better, right? I don't care what underhanded methods you used to stay by Harrison's side, but you had better recognize your place. Now that I am back, you won't be holding on to this spot." Faced with Veronica's insulting public provocation, Chloe slowly stopped reaching for a piece of cake. Instead of leaving in shame or throwing a tantrum as everyone expected, she slowly raised her head, her clear, deep eyes locking onto Veronica with a calm, amused intensity. "Have you guys ever seen a truly maxed out player today? I'm going to show you exactly what kind of brutal curb stomping happens when a top-tier boss accidentally wanders into a trashy wealthy family drama, or story kicks off inside a stunning high-end private lounge. Check out Chloe. This rich heiress dressed to the nines in a flashy black sequin gown, hands crossed over her chest, standing high on her heels, throwing absolute mad shade at a girl in a plaid shirt who was just minding her own business, picking out a mini cake. That girl in the plaid shirt is Serena, the badass heroine of our story today." Chloe rolls her eyes with pure arrogance and sneers. "Look, Serena, I'm saying this for your own good. You honestly think you can secure the spot as the young mistress of the Brandon family? Our family's prestige isn't something any random nobody can just crawl into. Look at this minor antagonist, dropping the most basic cliché lines the second she shows up. But what about our Serena? She doesn't even lift her head, because her entire soul is currently locked onto that exquisite little strawberry cake in her hand." Seeing that she's being completely ignored, Chloe gets so mad her eyebrows practically shoot straight up, and she keeps pouring on the toxic sarcasm. A man like Tyler needs a powerful partner who can actually stand by his side, not some unrefined country brat who only cares about stuffing her face. Take a good look in the mirror. You really think a little sparrow turns into a phoenix just by sitting on a high branch? Hearing this, her fake friend Jessica, who's been busy sucking up to Chloe, swishes the red wine in her glass and chimes chimes right in. Exactly. The position of Tyler's wife belongs only to someone like our Chloe, a well-born lady with both beauty and brains. If you know what's good for you, pack your bags and leave. Don't wait for Chloe to kick you out herself, or it is going to get really embarrassing for everyone involved. Faced with this tag team mockery, Serena finally decides to put down her cake. She casually fixes her bangs and glares at Chloe with this mocking, "I know your bullshit" look, her tone incredibly relaxed. Are you two completely blind, or is there just a massive hole in your brains? From start to finish, Tyler has been the one chasing me around like a lost puppy. Okay, he's the one begging me to be his fiancé. How on earth did that turn into me trying to gold dig my way into a rich family? The moment she says this, Chloe's face turns completely green. Exploding with humiliation and rage, she points her finger at Serena, gritting her teeth and screaming, "What kind of absolute garbage are you spitting right now? You're just a low-class loser. You really think Tyler would ever chase you? I am warning you for the absolute last time. Stay away from Tyler, or I will ruin your life and make you wish you were dead." Wow, that is some top-tier villain trash talk right there. Too bad the biggest nightmare for any villain is having the main guy eavesdropping right behind them. Just as Chloe finishes her threat, an ice-cold male voice cuts through the air from behind her. "Who exactly are you going to make wish they were dead?" Everyone spins around to see Tyler walking over with massive strides, wearing a sharp brown suit, his face so dark, it looks like a storm is brewing. Chloe, who was acting like a total psycho a second ago, instantly morphs into a fragile, helpless little victim the moment she spots Tyler. She rushes over to him, her eyes turning red as she instantly plays the pity card. "Tyler, how can you treat me like this for that woman? You told me when we were kids that I was your favorite little sister and that you'd protect me forever. And remember when I was hospitalized last time? You stayed by my bedside all night without sleeping a wink. Have you seriously forgotten all of that?" Wow, talk about rewriting history. Even Serena can't help but roll her eyes into the next dimension listening to this. Tyler just glares at Chloe coldly, not even wasting a single facial expression on her, and debunks her lies right on the spot. "Chloe, watch your words before you speak. When we were kids, I was only being polite because of our family's relationship. When did I ever say I'd protect you forever? And as for your hospital visit, your dad begged me to go check on you. I stayed for less than 30 minutes total. How did that turn into staying up all night?" TFFT. Serena absolutely cannot hold it in anymore and bursts out laughing. She wipes her hands, looking at Chloe with total amusement, and scoffs. Wow, talk about one-sided delusion. She's a decent-looking girl, too bad her brain is entirely filled with romance poison. Tyler ignores Serena's teasing, turns around, and pulls Serena straight into his arms right in front of everyone, declaring with absolute boss energy, "Let me make this crystal clear to everyone here. Serena is my officially recognized fiancée and the future matriarch of the Brandon family. If any of you dare to disrespect her again, don't expect me to show any mercy based on old times. Come on, let's go grab some real food." With that, Tyler takes Serena's hand and leaves the gala hall without a single backward glance. That leaves Chloe standing all by herself, squeezing her silver clutch so hard her knuckles turn white. Her eyes are filled with pure hatred, looking like she wants to burn a hole right through Serena's back. She glares at the direction they left and growls through her teeth, "Tyler, you actually did this to me for that trash woman. Fine if that's how it is, don't blame me for getting nasty." Once she goes full villain mode, Chloe moves fast. A little while later, she changes into a black high-slit dress and returns to the side lounge with a grim face. At an empty table with nobody around, she looks around suspiciously, opens her bag, and pulls out a packet of secret powder. With practiced moves, she dumps the entire packet into a glass of plain water on the table. The powder dissolves instantly, making the glass erupt with thick white bubbles. She uses a spoon to mix it thoroughly, an evil twisted grin spreading across her face. Meanwhile, the vibe over at the dining room is way more wholesome. Tyler is sitting at a green checkered table, carefully cutting up a steak and sliding the plate over to Serena. Serena is eating so happily, her face is covered in sauce, shaking her head with pure joy. Watching her cute food lover reactions, Tyler's eyes are overflowing with affection, and he asks softly, "How is it? Does it taste good?" Serena nods frantically, "Oh my god, yes, it is amazing." Right at that moment, Chloe is hiding behind some green plants in the distance, glaring at their table like a venomous snake. Completely off guard, Tyler grabs the glass of water that Chloe had spiked and drinks it all down in one go. Seeing him swallow the drug, Chloe immediately turns around and tracks down the waiter assigned to their table. She pulls out a massive stack of $100 bills from her bag, shoves it right into his hand, and whispers her orders. The moment you see that gentleman heading to the restroom, you take him straight up to the suite on the top floor. Do you understand me? The waiter's eyes literally light up looking at the thick stack of cash. There is absolutely no way he's turning that down, so he nods repeatedly and says, "Don't you worry, ma'am, consider it done." Chloe walks off on her high heels, completely smug, heading up to the room to set up her trap. She genuinely believes she's going to seal the deal tonight and climb her way to the top. Too bad for her, she made one massive miscalculation. Our heroine Serena is definitely not someone you want to mess with. Back at the table, the drug kicks in fast. Tyler starts feeling a wave of intense heat rushing through his body, his breathing turning heavy and ragged. Feeling completely miserable, he rips open his tie and shirt collar, looking deeply agitated. He props himself up against the table, fighting the dizziness, and murmurs to Serena, "Serena, I need to go to the restroom and wash my face." Serena, who was busy devouring her meat, suddenly sharpens her gaze, instantly sensing that something is dead wrong. She grabs Tyler's arm, feeling his pulse racing and his body temperature burning hot, her expression completely dropping into pure anger. Serena looks around the room once and instantly pieces everything together. She lets out a cold sneer, her eyes flashing with disdain. "Well played, Chloe. Chloe, you're actually trying to use this cheap trick to force him into bed. Dream on." To stop Chloe's nasty plot, Serena snaps into action. She stands up, hoists up the completely limp and semi-conscious Tyler, and storms straight down to the underground parking garage. By now, Tyler is completely out of it from the heat, completely unable to use any strength. Serena takes a deep breath and mutters to herself, "Good thing this lady has insane physical strength, otherwise you'd be in major trouble tonight, buddy." With that, she uses all her power and literally shoves Tyler, an over 6-foot-tall grown man, right into the backseat of her black sedan. Once Tyler is safe inside, Serena stands by the car door, pulls out her phone, and calls Tyler's assistant, "Mark, hey Mark, your boss is completely out of it. Get down to the parking garage at the Apex Lounge right now." But right while she's on the phone, Tyler, who has completely lost his mind to the intense drug inside the car, suddenly snaps like a wild beast. He reaches out, grabs Serena while she's talking by the window, and yanks her straight into the car. Caught totally off guard, Serena tumbles inside, landing heavily right on top of Tyler. Before she can even react, Tyler's burning hot lips smash onto hers in a fierce kiss. Serena's eyes widen in pure shock, her mind going completely blank. The scene shifts to the next morning. Sunlight pours into a clean luxury hotel suite as Tyler wakes up on a massive comfortable bed. He rubs his temples in agony, his head still feeling heavy and dizzy. Right now, a bizarre and completely absurd nightmare from last night is still lingering in his mind. In the dream, he was in a dark, terrifying underworld hall filled with thick smoke. The ruler of the underworld, dressed in a pitch-black robe and looking incredibly menacing, slammed his hand on the desk, roaring furiously at Tyler, who was kneeling on the floor. "I have been working my butt off down here for thousands of years. And you're telling me some random punk just laid a finger on my precious daughter? Kid, let me warn you, if my daughter loses even a single strand of hair, I will wipe out every last second of your remaining lifespan. I'll drag you down here to be an intern, and your job will be sweeping the hell of tongue ripping every single day. Do you hear me?" The demons in the dream were waving chains with their massive tongues out, and the whole thing felt terrifyingly real. Tyler shakes his head, muttering to himself, "What a psycho dream. Why would I ever dream about that?" But before he can even celebrate the fact that it was just a dream, he turns his head and literally jumps out of his skin in sheer terror, because lying right next to him, with her eyes just opening, is Serena. Tyler's face goes completely pale, and he stammers out, "Last night, what on earth happened last night?" Serena, completely annoyed, yanks the blanket over herself, grabs it tight, and gives him a massive eye roll before going into full roast mode. "You have some nerve asking. Last night, you were literally glued to me like a koala bear, and you weigh a ton. Every time I tried to leave, you wouldn't let go, throwing your giant arm right over me. Seriously, dude, your sleeping habits are absolute trash." The waiter, and screaming at the top of her lungs, "Get out, get away from me, get out." Seeing that she's completely lost control, the waiter quickly grabs his clothes and scrambles out of the room in a panic. Chloe sits all alone on the messy bed, her hair ruined, her eyes completely hollow and desperate, but very quickly that despair turns into an ocean of pure hatred. She grits her teeth so hard her nails sink deep into her palms, growling out word by word, "Tyler, Serena, this is all your fault. You two ruined me. I will make you pay for this. I'll make you wish you were dead." Blinded by pure revenge, Chloe immediately tracks down Jessica, who hates Serena just as much. The two toxic women click instantly and decide to team up to set a deadly trap for Serena. A few evenings later, inside the Brandon family living room, the atmosphere is incredibly heavy. Tyler's parents are sitting on the sofa anxious like ants on a hot pan. The old lady is gripping her phone tight, telling her husband frantically, "Yon, look at the time. Why isn't Tyler back yet? His phone is completely dead. I have this horrible feeling in my chest. What if something happened to him?" Tyler's dad shakes his fan, trying to calm her down. "Oh, it is fine. Don't worry. Maybe his phone just died, or he got caught up in a meeting. Let's just wait a bit longer." Meanwhile, Serena is sitting on the other side of the living room, looking down at her phone. Suddenly, an anonymous text from an unknown number pops up on her screen with chilling words. "If you want to see Tyler alive, come alone to the old warehouse on the west side. Don't play games or face the consequences." Seeing the text, Serena Serena's eyes instantly turn dangerous and ice-cold. But she hides her emotions flawlessly, looks up with a sweet smile, and tells Tyler's parents a quick lie. Mr. and Mrs. Brandon, a bystander, just texted me saying Tyler's car broke down on the road and his phone happened to die. I'll drive over and pick him up right now, so please don't worry. Hearing this, Tyler's mom lets out a massive sigh of relief. Oh, thank goodness, it's just a broken car, as long as he is safe. Serena, are you sure you can go alone? Why don't you let John go with you? Serena smiles warmly and politely declines, no need, Mr. Brandon. I'll be perfectly safe and back before you know it. You two should just get some rest. Tyler's dad nods with a smile advising her, alright then, keep your wits about you and stay safe. Serena grabs her jacket and walks out of the Brandon mansion without looking back. Inside the abandoned warehouse in Boston, the doors are locked tight, the air thick with a moldy stench and heavy smoke. Serena, dressed in a sharp khaki trench coat, expressionless, reaches out and slams the heavy iron door open with a loud bang. She steps inside over the gravel and dry grass, and as the smoke clears, she spots Jessica and Chloe standing side by side right in the center, backed by a row of massive muscular bodyguards wearing sunglasses. On a chair behind them, Tyler is completely unconscious, tied up tight with thick ropes. Even worse, his usually handsome and cold face is covered in brutal blue and purple bruises, with blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Any ordinary girl would have started crying and screaming for help seeing this scene. But our maxed out boss Serena just raises an eyebrow, crosses her arms, lets out a sigh, and snaps at the two antagonists with total annoyance. Seriously, you two, didn't your school teachers ever tell you not to hit people in the face? Such a gorgeous face, and look at how you ruined it. You guys have absolutely zero taste. Jessica lets out a cold laugh, stepping forward on her high heels. Wow, look at you, playing the loyal savior, actually showing up all by yourself. Let's see how long you can keep that smirk on your face. Chloe chimes, in her eyes filled with sadistic pleasure. Serena, you're usually so arrogant, aren't you, now that you've fallen into our hands? Let's see how tough you can act, you absolute idiot. Coming to this middle of nowhere dump alone today is the day you die. Faced with their delusional arrogance, Serena doesn't even get mad. She actually bursts out laughing. She looks at the two plastic friends like they are total morons, shaking her head. Wow, give you an inch, and you really think you take a mile? You think I'd come here alone if I didn't have the skills to back it up? How naive. Jessica gets completely triggered by her calm attitude and screams at the top of her lungs, what the hell do you mean? You are literally about to die and you are still talking trash. Bodyguards, get her, break her legs. It means, are you two ready for your karma? Serena lets out a cold chuckle and casually snaps her fingers. What happens next completely shatters the villain's understanding of reality. Right in the middle of the warehouse, a thick wooden plank that was lying in the rubble suddenly flies into the air as if it came alive. The next second, with a deafening crack, the plank smashes brutally right onto Jessica's forehead at lightning speed without a single person touching it. Ah! Jessica lets out a horrific scream, stumbling back several steps as a massive bloody bump instantly swells on her forehead, blood dripping down her face. Chloe is completely terrified, stepping back with her face pale white, covering her mouth and screaming in pure panic. What the hell is this? Who is it? Who is playing tricks here? Show yourself, come out if you have the guts. Jessica clutches her bleeding head, looking around frantically, but the only response she gets is that same wooden plank floating in the air. The plank spins around, locks onto Jessica's head, and delivers a rapid succession of brutal smashes. Jessica runs around like a maniac, her head covered in blood, looking completely ruined. Chloe stares at the plank flying around by itself, then looks at Serena, who is standing there completely chilled with her hands in her pockets. She finally figures it out, pointing a shaking finger at Serena, her voice cracking in terror. It is you, isn't it? What kind of black magic are you using? Completely losing her mind to fear, Chloe grabs a heavy iron shovel from the ground, swinging it wildly in the air while screaming hysterically at Serena. Serena, I know it's you. I am going to kill you. I'll take you down with me. Seeing Chloe charging over with the shovel, Serena just elegantly raises her hand, signaling a pause. Hold on a second, Miss Chloe, before you throw away your life trying to get revenge on me, there's something I think you should clarify first. Chloe freezes mid-swing with the shovel, looking at her with pure suspicion. What are you trying to say? Why don't you use whatever tiny bit of brain power you have left to think about it? On the night of the incident, who benefits the most by lighting that specific scent in your room, making you sleep with that disgusting waiter, and blowing the whole thing up? Or better yet, who just happened to appear in the hotel hallway first thing in the morning, knowing absolutely every single detail of what you went through the night before? You honestly think that was a coincidence? The only reason Jessica knew everything so perfectly is because she planned the entire thing from start to finish. She wanted to use your humiliation as blackmail to completely control you, turning you into her mindless pawn to get rid of me. If you don't believe me, just think back to the details of that morning. warning. Jessica, it was you. You ruined my life, you backstabbing snake. Hearing this, the fury in Chloe's heart completely explodes. She realizes she didn't just lose her virtue, she was actually played like a total fool by her most trusted best friend. She lets out a primal scream, hurls the shovel away, and pounces onto Jessica like a rabid animal. Claws out, "Ah, Chloe, you are crazy. Stop pulling my hair. Ah." In an instant, the two women are locked in a vicious catfight in the center of the warehouse, slapping, scratching faces, pulling hair, and choking each other, tearing each other apart until they are covered in blood. Meanwhile, the black-suited bodyguards who were supposed to attack Serena are suddenly manipulated by an invisible force, turning on each other and fighting brutally around the warehouse. Within seconds, the entire place is filled with the agonizing screams of the villains. And what about our badass heroine Serena? She's just standing there enjoying the show like she's watching a comedy movie. Once she's had enough entertainment, she casually walks over to the unconscious Tyler and swiftly unties the thick ropes around him. Serena looks at Tyler's bruised face, gently pinches his chin, and sighs with a bit of pity. "Wow, look at how they ruined this beautiful face. I'll definitely have to cook you something amazing to fix you up later." After clearing the ropes, Serena stands in front of Tyler. With the background music of Chloe and Jessica screaming and tearing each other apart behind her, she flashes a sweet smile, flexes her muscles, and casually hoists the over 180-pound tall CEO Tyler right into her arms in a total boss-level bridal carry. Holding Tyler effortlessly, Serena looks down at the sleeping man, a cocky grin spreading across her face as she mutters to herself, "Keep fighting, ladies. Once I get back to my underworld ledger, I get to log 2 more perfectly completed souls for my quota. Absolute perfection." With that the maxed-out boss, Serena carries her damsel in distress CEO and walks out of the warehouse with absolute elegance, leaving the villains to scream and rot in the smoke and ruins. That is what you call real power. That is a total slaughter. What is the most heartbreaking thing you've ever seen on a cold, desolate Los Angeles highway? A month earlier inside the halls of the Los Angeles Memorial Hospital, where the air was line pure, right? Better than wasting money on random girls. The aunt snaps immediately, spitting down, screaming right in her face, "Watch your mouth. Trash talk. Safia is a nobody from the dirt. She doesn't deserve to breathe our air. She's not even fit to wipe Vanessa's shoes." Faced with the brutal verbal assault, the sweet innocent Sophia bites her lip, tears welling up in her eyes fast. She can no longer breathe in this room, a room full of absolute vultures. She stands up sharply, voice shaking but firm. "Uncle, Aunt, I'm done eating. Enjoy your dinner, I'll be in the lounge." With that, she flees the suffocating hall, running out under a wave of laughter. Zach watches her walk away with a smirk, a disgusting predatory smirk, then makes a fake excuse to head upstairs, claiming he needs to check on Vanessa. But these greedy wolves have no idea that their every move is locked in a trap, a hunter's trap closing fast. Inside the freezing surveillance room, Quinn is staring dead at the monitor, watching Zach leave the table. The rage in her eyes could literally kill. She grits her teeth and lets out a curse. The enforcer next to her hands her water, trying to calm her down for the op. "Boss, breathe out. Don't let this trash ruin the long game Cole has been setting." Quinn takes a deep breath, forcing it down. But her eyes remain sharp as razors. She turns around to face her crew, her voice dropping to a freezing whisper as she uncovers the brutal truth, the truth hidden for 8 long years. 8 years ago on that stormy night, it was Zach, that spineless piece of trash, who accidentally ended a man's life. The victim's family had infinite power. They refused any payout from us and demanded the killer pay with his life. And our boss Cole, because of brotherhood, because he valued loyalty over everything, didn't hesitate for a single second. He took the entire rap for this monster and spent 8 brutal years rotting away. At this point, Quinn's hands shake, violently shaking from pure, unadulterated rage.